Good evening, everyone. Welcome to How to Excel in the 21st Century. A lot of you may be in the crowd wondering what to expect tonight. Just to share with you, I, in the same position over 12 months ago, come in knowing, is it going to be worth it? Is what I've come along, donated my time, volunteered, is it going to be worth it? Just to share with you, over 12 months ago when I did it, I've learned some fantastic financial strategies that have made a big difference in the quality of life I'm leading today. So it definitely is worth it. That's not what we're here for tonight. We're here to learn how Jamie can teach you. Over 5 years ago, Jamie was $150,000 in debt with no job or future prospects and turned himself into a self-made millionaire by learning to develop the mindset of a millionaire and also apply some simple financial strategies. So he's also co-founder of a multi-million-dollar educational company and an author. He's already donated in excess of $1 million to teenagers, scholarships, and nominated Young Australian of the Year. So what I'd like you to do is put a big hand to welcome Mr. Jamie McIntyre.
Thanks, Brett. Good evening. Welcome along. As Brett mentioned, my name is Jamie McIntyre, and it's great to have the chance, and I guess an honour to share some things with you tonight. I get the chance to talk to, literally tens of thousands of people right around this country, something I love to do, the chance to communicate with everyday Australians. And one thing I notice around in this country, talking to a lot of people, is one thing I can say about Australians is that we're fairly open to learning. I think they did some surveys recently as far as taking up new information and open to change. We rate as one of the highest per capita of any country in the world. So I guess I commend you for that and the fact you've taken some time out to come along tonight. I know many of you have been, no doubt, dragged along here by some family and friends, and someone's been along to an event like this and said, you've got to come and check this out. And I guess my intention tonight is to share with you as much as I can, but realising, let me ask you an honest question. Who in the room has been to at least one seminar already in their life? Who's already been to at least one seminar? Okay. Majority of people, you survived that, so you should survive this as well. But I guess I want to make it a little bit different to tonight because, my time is valuable, and I certainly don't need to be here tonight. However, I put a lot of time and effort into here, and just like yourself, you volunteer to be here tonight and invest your time, which certainly is precious. So I want to ensure you get the most out of tonight, and I want to ensure my time is certainly valued as much as possible. And the way that I get the most out of my time is, helping you understand and make a significant difference by applying these strategies. And people go to a lot of seminars, and I've been to a lot, and there's some great ones out there. But what I find is people come across some great information, but if it was just the information that's taught, for instance, there'll be some people here tonight that will take this information and make a massive difference to the quality of their life. Their bank account will increase, or whatever else they want to change in their life can make a big difference with it. But how come there'll be other people in the room tonight that hear the same information, hear the same strategies, yet do absolutely nothing with it? In other words, the challenge that I face is that I used to go to seminars and learn the great stuff, and I just thought if I could just get the secrets, if I just could find out, how to do it, or how do the wealthy do what they do. It just seems difficult for me, just don't seem to have the money to invest or do these things. And I just thought the information would be the key. However, it wasn't. The key was actually taking some action with that information. So tonight, yes, we can cover a lot of strategies. I'll share a little bit about tonight how I went and learned some information. I was able to apply some what I consider fairly new financial strategies many people are not aware of by changing my thinking, and to go from a position of being $150,000 in debt, and a little bit over 5 years ago it was now, and a little over 3 years after that, I was able to turn my financial situation around completely to where I become a self-made millionaire at a very young age in this country. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you that if some young kid that grew up on a farm can learn something and figure out how to do that, then my belief is that other people can produce much better financial results than what they're doing already. Does that make sense? And tonight, I guess, is to share with you some of those strategies. But I really want to challenge you. Let me ask you a question. Who wants to get a lot out of tonight? Raise your hand if you want to get a lot out of tonight. Okay? Because we could just sit here and share some interesting information, and some of you may do something, some of you may not. Okay? But my role as an educator is to get people to take action if you wish to do that. And there's no point just sharing information if it's not used. So I guess I want to challenge you tonight to consider this. If you could learn at least one idea tonight, that would make a difference to your bank account, if that's what you're interested in? Just one idea. Would it be worth it, yes or no? Yeah. But what have you learned? You could learn several ideas, or at least enough strategies tonight that if you're committed to taking action with those things, even though that may mean you may have to face your fears, your limitations, maybe things that are holding you back right now, you may have to change your thinking, you may have to consider expanding your mindset, your thinking, etc. But would it be worth the effort, even if you had to study the notes that we go over tonight, review it every single day for the next week? If you had to take that level of commitment to ensuring you apply this stuff, if that could set you up, just one or two ideas could set you up financially for the rest of your life, would it be worth putting everything into it for the next few hours to understand this, yes or no? And I believe most people it would be, because many people just often are not committed enough. And I can give you as much as I can tonight, but it's a two-way street. Is that fair enough? So some of the things I want to share with you, for instance, I've been able to help many people by understanding these strategies, like how to replace their income, many people in 90 to 180 days after attending an event like that. Now, is there anyone in the room that would like to be able to replace their income in the next 90 to 180 days, okay? Other people have done it. Can you do that? Well, I believe you could, but there's a big if. And the if is really up to you, whether you're willing to do certain things. Is that fair enough? Now, some people's obviously going to take longer than that, but we're going to look at different strategies. For instance, we're going to look at some exciting strategies around the share market. Who in the room has some shares? Raise your hand if you have some shares. Okay, a few people. Obviously, many people have never touched shares or maybe never invested before, which is fair enough. I guarantee you the time you leave tonight, you'll definitely want to have some shares. Okay? I used to not like shares until I realized and learned some strategies that can make significant cash flow with low to medium risk without needing to work for that money, and I soon took a liking to shares. Okay? And so we're going to go through that. We're going to talk about a concept of renting out shares. And most people think renting out shares, I thought you could rent out property, Jamie, but how can you rent out shares? It can't be done. Well, let's look at, most people don't know the things that can be done. We'll look at a strategy where you can generate, I believe, at least an extra $4,000 to $5,000 a month in a reasonably short period of time, working less than 5 minutes a month. Is that of interest to anyone tonight? Okay. Just move on to that topic, Jamie. We'll also look at property. Who's already owns a property or lives in a property? Okay, that should take care of most of us. And so look at how to get some tax-free money legally. So any ATO double agents in the room tonight, yes, any strategies we look at tonight will definitely be legal. Okay, and yes, you can get tax-free money from investments and quite legally here in Australia and things like that. We'll look at things like that, different strategies. So a lot we're going to go through, but also want to help you understand what I call the mindset of a millionaire. In other words, if you think about it, people that are incredibly wealthy, do you think they may think differently to someone that's on the dole? What do you think? Yeah, dramatically, a big difference. And that's what I realized. My thinking's changed a lot in the last 5 years. And I think differently to most people. But I also produce very different results to most people as well. So we want to look at some of those things tonight. So here's what I challenge you to do. If you want to get the most out of tonight, it's up to you. I'm going to give you 110%. So you leave here tonight saying, thank God I come. I really appreciate this. I've got a lot of stuff and I can start taking action tomorrow. A lot of things you can put into action straight away. I recommend you take down lots of notes. Does everyone have a workbook? Take down lots of notes. When we go through figures and things like that, just to stay with it, if you've got the notes, you can review it. Who would be willing to review their notes at least once in the next 7 days? Who'd be willing to do that? Okay. We'll send some people around just to make sure you do. In other words, it's up to you to take action with it, because I'll be honest here, yes, you can make a big difference, but if you don't do anything with it, it's not going to happen. The other thing I challenge you to do is keep an open mind. What used to hold me back is that I used to think I knew everything. Does that make sense? And to some of my, when I found some mentors that were quite wealthy, they said to me, Jamie, I don't give a damn how much you know. And said, all we're interested in, what are you doing? What results do you have in your life? Because, as I said, I used to think I knew everything, but my results weren't up to what I knew. And I find most people know a lot more than what they're actually doing. Is that fair enough? In other words, for a lot of people, we've just got to get ourselves to do some things we already know and then add some more strategies to that. So keep an open mind. The other thing I wanted you to consider is a lot of people are just focused on, just making enough money to be comfortable. Okay? Now, who in the room would like to be comfortable financially? Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to stretch you beyond just being comfortable. Because I'll share this analogy with you. I used to think rich people were bad people. You know, all rich people are bastards, you know what I'm saying? Or they must be selfish and greedy and things like that. And one of my first mentors, he was a very wealthy man, and he said to me, look, I deliberately make 40 times more money from my investments than I need to live an extraordinary quality of life. 40 times more. And I'm thinking, yeah, I knew it. Rich people are greedy. Okay. And he said, well, Jamie, it's the way that you look at it. He said, let's see who's the selfish and greedy one here. He said, right now, this is 5 years ago, right now you're in a position where you can't even make enough money to take care of yourself. And he said, don't you think that's selfish? He said, you can't even take care of yourself. He said, I'm in a position where I have both time and money. More money than I need and more time than most people. He said, I'm in a position by choice where I have both time and money to focus on helping other people, where you can't. He said, who's the selfish person? And what it did for me was completely change my thinking. Instead of feeling guilty about becoming wealthy, saying, hang on a minute, I live in a beautiful country. Is that true? We live in Australia. And I'd say to people, if you can't make it in Australia, guess what? You're not going to make it anywhere. And how is it that in one of the most wealthiest countries on the planet, or what at least used to be one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, why is it then so few Australians are actually sharing in that wealth? If you look around this country, most Australians are slaves to the bank and a slave to a job in one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. What is going on? And we could probably just talk a lot about different things that are causing that. But the question is to think about that. What do we need to change that? Because if we can't, create the lifestyle we want in this country, then it's not going to happen if we, migrate to Bombay or, Calcutta or somewhere like that. It's not going to get any better. So we're going to say, and take advantage of the opportunity we have. So tonight, what I mean, I don't just want you to be comfortable. I want you to think about, you say, well, Jamie, I just want enough money, to not have to work anymore and have it as a choice. And that's a worthwhile goal. I want to stretch you beyond that. Does it make sense? I did not become a millionaire because I wanted to be materialistic and make a lot of money. I became a millionaire because I wanted to make a big difference in my life. I wanted to live my purpose, and I wanted to help a lot of people. And as a result, in order to do that, I needed a lot of money and a lot of time. Does that make sense? So I was then driven to make money for the reasons to be able to live my purpose. That's a very different driver to the average person. The average person, would it be true, just wants enough money to get by. Just wants enough money to take care of the bills, to pay the mortgage, etc. So their drive level is down here. In other words, I think we've got to raise our standards and say, how can we go beyond that? Because if I can get you to raise your standards in here, and if you put some focus in, you imagine the next 90 days, the things we're going to learn here tonight, you say, okay, I'm going to give it at least 90 days. I'm just going to stay focused and look at how I can improve my life and do more than what I'm currently doing. And you'll be amazed what can start to happen. But go beyond that. So all I ask in return for tonight is share a lot of valuable information that normally would not be shared with the average person. It's very difficult for me to acquire this information, very expensive, very time-consuming, but I'm glad I did. It's made a tremendous difference to my life, and I've been able to impart this information to tens of thousands of Australians, and there's many people that no longer have to work as a result of learning these strategies. And they're very happy about that, as you can imagine. And you could be one of them if that's something that you want to do. All I ask in return is that you consider, if you increase your wealth as a result of applying these strategies tonight, would you be willing to consider doing this? Consider giving at least 10% of that. Increase wealth, increase net worth, increase income. Not to me, okay, you can if you want, but you don't have to, but to a favourite charity, of your own charity or whatever you believe in giving money to. Who'd be willing to consider doing that? Okay? In other words, let's say you made an extra $50,000 in the next 12 months as a result of what you learned tonight. That means you'd have to give away $5,000 to a worthwhile cause. Would that be fair enough? Okay? And I find a lot of people say, I'm not, I don't know, how can, give to other people or give away. It's like, I find the people who are willing to give first tend to get it to come back. And I think the challenge with so many people is they're so focused on themselves, on their own problems, they don't have time to get out there and help other people. And that, the law of giving first, and then it comes back. And wealth is just like that if we want to, create wealth and, I guess, abiding by universal principles. And I often jokingly say to people, if you don't have a favourite charity right now, maybe you'll meet someone in the room tonight that will volunteer to be your favourite charity. So just look around, you might find that. So A lot to get through. Everyone just quickly stand up. Oh no, not one of those seminars I actually have to do something. I just thought I could just, sit here and check it out. And here's what I want you to do in just a moment is get a chance, introduce yourself to at least 3 other people around you. Say what your name is. That should be the easy bit. What you currently do, your career, occupation. And the third thing I want you to share is why are you here tonight? Okay? And you can't just say, well, my spouse dragged me along. Okay? That may be true for some of you, and I have no idea why I'm here. But you've got to be more creative now. You're here now, you might as well learn something. What would you like to learn? Okay, your name, what you do, why you're here. Meet at least 3 other people, go for it quickly. Okay, class, everyone grab a seat quickly. Grab a seat quickly. Now you figured out why you're here, we can get started. Before we go into some of the strategies, I'll quickly tell you a little bit about my story, where I'm coming from, what gives me the right to speak on subjects such as money, financial success, and success in general. As I tell people, I'm very much an everyday Australian. Just been fortunate enough, I guess, the last 5-6 years of my life to come across very valuable information. But as I said, not just the information, but I guess had people what I call role models and mentors, people that were, I guess, patient enough with me, because I was a slow learner, to understand that information, actually be able to then take action with it. And as a result of taking action over a period of years, I was able to produce well above average results. And in finances, in financial areas, in business, career, and other areas of my life. And as a result, I get to live a life today where I wake up and I got to pinch myself. Someone told me, 5 years ago, sleeping on a friend's couch, that I would live virtually every dream that I could imagine back then. I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't believe it. And just like some of you in this room, 5 years from now, the quality of life you could create for yourself. Time is amazing what can happen. I grew up on a 2,000-acre farm, which we still have to this day, in northern New South Wales near a township called Glen Innes. Has anyone ever heard of Glen Innes before? And if you've ever been there in winter, you'll never want to go back there again. That's why I left. And, but growing up on a farm, one of the things I learned around money was in order to make money, we had to work really, what do you think? Really hard, and as a youngster I had lots of references of that, working really hard, and that's all my father had done and my grandfather had done when he was alive. It was just sort of, I guess it was the thinking that was passed on. Life is hard work and struggle, Jamie, that was passed from one generation to the next, so you just sort of accept that. The other thing is, who can remember being asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? Anyone remember being asked that question? Okay. Does anyone still get asked that question? A few honest people, yeah. And people want to be different things, actors, actresses, pilots, doctors, nurses. It's different for everyone. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I grew up, but one thing I definitely was sure about is that when people say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be rich. And I don't know where that come from. Maybe it was because I used to watch Dallas all the time. Remember that show? Dallas and J.R. Ewing and things like that. And I used to play Monopoly a fair bit, and I was pretty good at that. But in the back of my mind, it wasn't to become rich in the sense of money, but the word rich to me when I was young meant, being above average and having a life that, is full and getting the most out of life. So this sort of affected me going through my school, and some of the teachers knew that I was, I guess, more ambitious than a lot of people. I certainly wasn't academically top of the class. I wasn't the bottom. I was sort of in between, pretty average. I tended to play a lot of sport back then, and where I come from, if you played rugby league, as long as you were good at rugby league, they got you through school okay, you know what I'm saying? And so some of the teachers said, Jamie, if you want to make lots of money when you grow up, so some advice for me. If you want to make lots of money, here's what we recommend you should do with the rest of your life. And they said, Jamie, if you want to make lots of money, you should go off to a place called university. And at university, you should study hard and you should become an accountant, because accountants make lots of money. Okay? And I think sometimes maybe that's probably true because of the amount of fees they charge, but accountants don't always agree with that. Okay? And I, like many people, started on a career path and headed off on a journey, then I think it didn't take me too many years later to figure out and say, well, is this really what I want to do with the rest of my life? You know, there's more to life than just working, more to life than just doing this. And at that time, I come across an interesting statistic. I want to jot this down quickly. This statistic was shared by a very wealthy man. And he said, out of those people that become rich in this country, in Australia, of those who become rich, over 70% of them do it by owning their own, what do you think? Yeah, their own business. Over 70% of them do it by owning their own business. So I'm thinking here, I know nothing about becoming wealthy at the time. I'm thinking, well, that's probably why I'm not rich. I don't have a business and I'm working for someone else. That must be the one and only secret I've been looking for to riches. I simply must need to get a business and I should be set for life. Okay? And has anyone else thought that and started their own business? Anyone in the room started their own business? Yeah. And you maybe had the thinking that I had at the time. And so I thought, okay, I've got to get into business for myself. Here's the first challenge that I faced. And no doubt when it comes to investing, this is one of the biggest hurdles most people don't get over. And it's why a lot of people are not, out there doing very well financially. Is one where I was taught when I grew up, in order to make money, you first must have what? That was the thinking that was passed down to me. It's okay for people to have money, it's easy to make money, but if you don't have any, too bad. And I find many people, as many Australians, that is one belief that holds them back. They think, yeah, it's all right, you just got to have money to make money. And you know what, jot this down, this is what I think of that. Jot this down. Bullshit. It's bullshit. A lot of things that people think around money is bullshit, okay? In other words, if we're going to become wealthy, we need to start finding the truth and doing the opposite to most people. As one of my mentors said, Jamie, you want to be successful, find out what most people are doing, and then do the exact opposite. And I've been doing that for the last 5, 6 years, and I'm pretty happy about it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't always know exactly what to do, but I just think, what would most people do in this situation? And I go the opposite direction. And so I call it the law of opposites. But anyhow, just before I go on, I just want to also welcome in tonight. There's people will be watching this via video right around the country and in their homes. So can we just give those people a hand? That way they feel welcome as well for joining us tonight. And so anyhow, I was in my story, so where I was up to? Just checking whether you're listening. Oh, business, yeah, I need money to start investing. It's an important point. In other words, that's a hurdle that holds a lot of people back. You need money to make money. Well, not necessarily true. If we're committed, see, if we're committed to making this stuff work, we'll find a way. But I think the challenge that holds a lot of people back is there's two kinds of people in this world. There's those that are committed to finding a solution to every problem. However, they're the minority. The majority of people, unfortunately, are committed to finding a problem to every solution. Does that make sense? And I can present solutions to help people become financially free. There's people that would take hold of those solutions and make it happen. Well, the other people, the wrong sort of thinking, will try and find problems to it. In other words, we've got to be committed to making it happen. And that's what I had to learn. I had massive commitment. That's why I got massive results quickly. And I was probably much more committed, definitely, than most people. However, in my situation, I started well below zero, where the majority of people in this room are starting from a very good point. So you're in a tremendously good position to really improve your results quickly. So, didn't have the money, so where do you come up with money? I thought banks, that's what banks must be for, right? To give money to people that really, really desperately need the stuff. And I'm sure some of you found out that's not the case either. Banks wouldn't give me any money, so how do I start a business? How do I start investing in anything for that matter? So I didn't have the money. And then I was able to come across a thing called credit cards. Has anyone come across credit cards before? Okay. I was able to develop what I call multiple relationships with these things. Okay. I didn't just have a fling with one credit card. I had multiple relationships, and I was able to, how you can advance cash on credit cards. I was able to advance a total of $16,000 in cash on these credit cards. I took that money, I used it to launch my first business. I had no idea what business I'd start, but this some time ago this was, And I thought, what would be a way to make a lot of money? Because back then, that's all I was focused on, which was another big mistake, by the way. And I thought, well, mobile phones were just starting to become popular. And I thought, by the year 2000, everyone will have one. And I thought, I want to start in telecommunications. And you can see I did a lot of research on that. But anyhow, I just started a telecommunications business. And long story short, not having a clue what I was doing, but just being committed though, just giving it a go and putting everything I thought on the line. $16,000. And here's another thing that I think holds people back. People think, is it true, many Australians think that investing is risky. Many Australians think that? Yeah. Many people think that investing is risky, or it's too time consuming, it's too difficult, and you're better off letting someone else just manage the money. Many people think that. And I can understand why they would think that. I used to think that. But anything we share tonight is I'm going to show you tonight, for instance, how, yes, there will be risk in these strategies that I do and other people are doing. However, here's my belief. There's risky, the question's got to be risky compared to what? See, I'm not recommending go out and start a business like I did, but I borrowed $16,000 and I put it on the line. Does that make sense? Borrowed that to put on the line to start investing into a business. That's considered a big risk. However, let's consider it. What do most people borrow money for? Would many Australians borrow $16,000 for a car, yes or no? They'd borrow $16,000 for a car. They drive it out of the showroom, and guess what happens to that great investment? It drops anywhere from 20 to 30%. So they lose what? 3,000 or 4,000. It might drop to 13,000. And the great thing about cars is that they have the habit of doubling every 7 to 10 years. Is that right? In other words, in 10 years' time, what's a car worth? Anywhere from 0 up to maybe a few thousand, depending on the car. And not only are cars a great investment for achieving that, but every time you pull up at the service station, it just pumps more cash back into your pocket. They don't do that either. So, in other words, when we look at people saying investing is risky, I think, yeah, sure, there's a risk to everything. Life is risky. No one's going to get out of life alive. That's how risky it is. But if we think about it, a car, people buy a car and it does that on their money. They think, well, that's normal, no big deal. So let me ask you a question. Who in the room's bought a car already? Raise your hand. Okay. And have you survived that? You bought a car. Could you handle the risk of buying a car? Yes or no? Yeah. You got some good news for you. If you can handle the risk of buying a car, then the risk necessary for you to become financially independent, even with some of the strategies, even with strategies I'll show you tonight where you can make up to 100% return on your money, will have less risk than what you've already done in buying a car. Does that make sense? Is that good news for you? Because a lot of people, I'm not going to invest, it must be too risky. Once again, bullshit. They're already taking more risk with the money than what it would be to investing. In actually investing smartly is less risk on their money. There's some people think that putting their money in the bank, they put their money in the bank. Why? Because they think it's safe. Okay? They let other people manage their money because they think it is safe. Interesting, isn't it? See, let's look at this for a second. Where do most people learn about money? Who do they go and see about money? Parents want people, but who would they go and see? If you want some advice, where would you normally go for money? Your bank manager, yeah. Accountants, financial planners, that'd be true, and people like that. Now, let's not pick on anyone here tonight, but let's just discuss the truth, shall we? Now, and the banks as well. Let's talk about the banks for a moment. Is anyone work in the banks here? Raise your hand if you work in the bank. Okay. That's okay. We won't pick on you because you're part of the system anyhow. Here's what a lot of people see. Here's the other thing. People think, and I'll get back to my story in a minute. People think that to make high returns. Here's the other things that hold people back. People think to make high returns in investing, if you can make a high return, must be what? High what? High risk. Jot it down, bullshit. Now, it's true in some cases high return equals high risk. Yet, there's ways to make high return with low to medium risk. Well, Jamie, if that's true then how come most people don't know about it? Often reporters come and do interviews and things like that. And it's interesting the questions they ask. They go, well, Jamie, it's obviously okay with you, and you're obviously very young. That's why you've had heaps of energy. That's why you become wealthy. And I find that humorous because when I was young, I was thinking, you know, I'm too young to become wealthy. I'm too young to be successful. Maybe when I get a few grey hairs, you know, people think I'm wise enough then, you know, I might become wealthy by then. You see all these limitations that hold us back. Well, so you're lucky, obviously, but you know, can you expect the average person to be able to use these strategies and produce similar results? Can you really know? There's got to be a catch. It can't possibly happen for other people. And I'm like, absolutely, no, I'm just absolutely adamant if people do certain things, it's going to happen. And people can actually do it quicker. But let me explain to you why I think the average person does not know how you can make high returns with less risk, with low to medium risk. Let's see if we can figure it out, shall we? The banks. If you put your money in the bank, which bank told you at a young age that you should put money in the bank? That one, okay? You know, at a young age, we are conditioned and trained about money. So the average Australian lives in the wealthiest country on the planet, yet most of them are broke. How is that possible? Let's consider it. The good old banks, okay? If you put money in the bank, because it's nice and safe and we're taught to do that, what do we make on our money? Can we make 2%? If we're lucky. Being generous, up to 5% per annum, yeah. Yeah, that's before fees and charges. Okay, I'm being generous, you know, in case there's some bankers in here, we want to be okay on 2 to 5%. So if the banks could get your money at 2 to 5%, do the banks only make a couple of percent on that money, do you think? Over on this side, how much do you think they might make on that money? Could they make 20%? Could they make 50%? Do you think they could make 100% per annum? And possibly even more. But let's say they can only make 20 to 100% per annum. Okay? Not a lot of risk for them, is it? Because guess whose money they're making it on? Okay? So on this side, what the average Australian is taught about money, on this side of the equation, this is us over here, we're taught put in the bank, we'll get 2 to 5%. And then we're taught we go to seek financial advice. We go to see a financial planner. And one of my mentors said, Jamie, go and sit down next to a financial planner, you know, and as they're teaching you what to do and, you know, what advice they should give you, here's what I want you to think about in the back of your mind. If that financial planner can help you become a self-made millionaire, live the life of your dreams and design the ultimate lifestyle that you want and you commit it to, then why haven't they done it themselves? I thought, oh, I didn't think of that before. Is that a fair enough question? Okay. Not picking on financial planners. But let me ask you another question. For a financial planner to get a piece of paper to give you advice on financial planning, do they have to become successful investors, know how to lead by example, and be committed to be an example of how to invest and replace their income before they can share that information with you? Yes or no? No. Do they actually have to be taught anything about money? Very little, okay? And so some of the smart ones come to seminars like this so they learn and they can help their clients. And there is some good ones out there. In other words, they're not wealthy, but we go seek advice off them. Tonight, I challenge you to check out, okay? Skepticism is fine. Is that fair enough? Because I know there's some of you in the room skeptical. Raise your hand, honestly, if you've got some skepticism. Put your hand up. Come on. We'll get it on camera. We know where you're sitting. But now, skepticism is fine because you probably want, I mean, I'm a skeptical person as well. But you know what's good about skepticism? What skepticism should be, it'll get you to check out the facts. That's what you want to do. Because, see, in what I'm talking about here tonight, I welcome that. Open arms, check that out. What you want to be careful of is, because unfortunately in this country some people are not skeptical, they're actually cynical. And cynicism is really a waste of time. And that holds people back. Because cynicism is like they're not even willing to check out and clarify the facts. They're willing to dismiss something before they find the facts. Is that fair enough? So skepticism is fine. So we want to have a healthy skepticism about things because we don't want to be too gullible. So I think most of society is very gullible. They're led, to put their money in certain places. So the financial planning system, and then we have bank managers we go to see, used to see about advice, etc. Having a bank manager, going to see a bank about financial advice is a bit like, having the fox guard the hen house on the farm. You know what I'm saying? You think about it, it's like, you look how the financial system's set up. We see a bank manager. Now, why, you've got to say, now, the financial planning industry, if you're not aware of it, guess who owns 90% of it? The banks own 90% of that. Now, I'll ask you this question. If the banks can get your money at 2 to 5%, and we're conditioned and educated to do that, and they can know how to make this sort of money, now they make this sort of money, are the banks concerned on the risks they take to make this sort of money? They're not concerned with the risks. Why would the financial planning system, why would the banking system, why would the monetary system want you educated to know how to make up to 100% per annum on your money if it's easy to have people educated that only know how to do this or very small return? Does it make sense? There's no real agenda in the way our systems are set up to have you know how to do this. There's no agenda. The agenda is it's easy to have someone else manage your money because money is difficult. It's hard to control and all that sort of thing. That's what's put out there. Let someone else take care of it. Okay? That's handy because you might get in a managed fund or something 10 or 15%, but they're using that money over here making an absolute fortune and paying small returns, etc. So most of the money is tied up here. What I'm suggesting tonight is a different way of thinking. Because see, I have a very different agenda. See, I don't work for the banks. I'm not a financial planner. And I'm independently wealthy. And I don't have to be here tonight. Does that make sense? And I don't need any more money, okay? And I don't need your money either. My only agenda is to make a difference. And my agenda behind that is to have you become independently wealthy. Now, why would I want that for you? Well, one, if I've been able to access strategies, and to get that, I have to do a promise that I will pass that on. That is one, to honour my commitment to some of my mentors. But two is I have a belief because I think this should change. And I have an agenda to have people be able to make these sort of returns, be aware of the risks, be able to manage the risk, and do it themselves. Because then we have people not enslaved to the monetary system, not enslaved to the banks or to a job. We have people who are independently wealthy and have the freedom. So as an everyday Australian, we get to get on and do the things we want in life that are most important with us. So what we've got to do is do the opposite of most people. We have got to re-educate ourselves. We've got to be aware of how the systems work, and we need to educate ourselves. And what I'm suggesting is this: money is not difficult to manage. To become independently wealthy is a skill that can be learned. It is worth managing your own money rather than let someone else manage it. Because people think, I'll let someone else take care of it, it'll be easier that way. Wrong. It'll cost you big time. You're selling your future if you do that. I'm suggesting, as an Australian, I manage my own money. I'm glad I've learned how to do that. The skills required to manage money and be independently wealthy is not difficult. No more difficult than when you first started your job or your business you're in now. At first, it might have been difficult. Is that true? But once you learn it, it becomes a piece of cake. It's a skill that can be learned. Because if you're aware on this planet, we divided all the wealth that these monetary, the banking system controls, divided all the wealth on the planet equally, including this country, every single one of us would already be a millionaire. Did you know that? We'd be worth around about $3 million if the wealth was divided equally. But it's not like that, is it? It's restricted into the hands of a few. And the thing that keeps it that way is ignorance. The only way to overcome that is education. And the education that is unbiased. So, is that making sense? Now, back to my story. Yes, I started a phone company, a telecommunications company. I put everything on the line. I had no idea what I was doing, but it paid off. 9 months later, I was making more money per month in that business than what I used to make an entire year working for someone else. And I thought then the secret to becoming wealthy is simply make lots of money. But that was another mistake as well, because the more I made, the more I spent. And I wasn't keeping any. I wasn't paying myself first. I wasn't putting anything aside. I wasn't managing cash flow. So I soon got myself into financial difficulty, like many of Australians, where we spend more than we earn. And we start spiraling downwards instead of becoming wealthier by compounding up. Start spiraling downwards. I got myself into a lot of debt. I couldn't manage the business. I got to a point where I thought, I'm sick of working for money. Because what I wanted was lifestyle. I wanted some time and freedom. I'm sure most people want that. To have lifestyle, obviously, you have to have time and money. I was selling my time to get money. It's a sacrifice. I got to a point where I'm sick of the money, so I sacrificed the money to get some time. That wasn't much fun either, okay? And I found myself in a lot of debt. It was about $150,000 in personal debt because I lost my company, lost everything, and it was a really good wake-up call for me to say, hang on a minute, maybe I need to change course. I'm doing something wrong here. I'm not doing the right thing. And the only place I had left to sleep was my friend who used to work for me in my company, and I was sleeping on his couch. I was either sleep on his couch or go back to the farm and be a farmer and freeze my butt off in winter in Glen Innes. So I opted to figure out how to turn this mess around. I was, I guess, desperate. But what was good about that is it made me say, hang on a minute, I need to change my thinking because my thinking is producing this result. So I went on a search to find, because I realized up at that point, the only education I ever had was at school and university. And people think, well, that's great, isn't it, school and university? However, a lot of that education had been based on theory. And I realized if I wanted to get real results in my life, I needed to find some people that had gone from no money and become wealthy. And people ideally in this country that I could learn off and shortcut my process because I didn't have 50 years to learn this stuff. I dare say anyone in the room a little bit impatient and wants to make money a little bit quicker than, say, the 50-year plan? Anyone like, yeah, see if we can condense this down. I was very impatient. I thought, I can't wait 50 years, I don't want to one day retire, and you're walking down the beach one day, you eventually retired, hand in hand with your spouse, cane in cane, it's like, I want a lifestyle now. So what I had to look for, I went and searched for some role models and mentors, and I was able to come across some interesting people. And over a period of years, by taking their strategies, I was able to apply some amazing financial strategies to my life. I was able to eliminate debt rapidly. I was able to develop multiple forms of income. Over a period of time, I was able to learn how to save that money in a large amount, start saving money, and then know how to invest that money, turn that small amount of money into more money. And then get even smarter at that, how to get access to other people's money. In other words, for investing. Okay, how to get access to finance and things like that so I could use other people's money to make a return on. And by doing that, I was able to multiply my profits. Within 3 years later, I became a self-made millionaire, and I was starting to get really good at managing money and going on from there since. But I did it in a different way because my attribute was this. I believe in lifestyle because some of my mentors were also were examples in some areas of their life, but also warnings in other areas. And one of my mentors, I learned a lot financially, but the one thing I didn't like about him was that the fact that he worked all the time. He was virtually a workaholic. And I thought, yeah, I don't mind becoming financially smart, but that's not the name of the game. What's the point of being wealthy if you have to work all the time? What's the point of being wealthy if you don't get to see your family? What's the point of working if you don't being wealthy if you don't have time to travel and see the world? So I adopted a new strategy. I did the opposite to that. And I'm not sure whether you'll adopt this strategy for yourself, but I think it's a good one. And what I started to do was implement a lifestyle program for myself. And that lifestyle program was this. Every 4 weeks, 1 week out of 4, I would go on a holiday. Make sense? I decided that I was going to do the opposite of most people. Do most people go on a holiday 1 week out of 4? No, most people, some people haven't, I've met some people who haven't had a holiday for 3 years. There's some people for 5 years. The average Australian has, 4 weeks a year holiday. So I decided to start to do the opposite. This is even before I was wealthy. I said, I start at the beginning of the year in design. I said, I'm going to take 1 week out of 4 off. That means I'm going to have to squeeze in 4 weeks worth of work, where it takes me to produce an income into 3 to free up 1 week. And then I have to be able to figure out how to make some money so I can go on a holiday. Now, at first it was difficult. Now, many people say, oh, that's ridiculous, Jamie, you don't understand my life. I can't take 1 week out of 4. Who can't take 1 week out of 4 right now in a holiday? Okay. Well, the point might be that maybe you might want to change something, because I don't think it's healthy if you can't do that. Okay. I don't think it's healthy for your long-term future. In other words, I'm not saying you have to, but be in a position where you can do that. So if you need to change some things in your life to be in that position, might be a good idea to look at how do you change it. One, you can have money coming in without the need to work. That frees up your time. Or you can restructure your work to be productive to free up that time. Because I figured out this. If I don't start going 1 week out of 4 to start traveling and seeing my own country, I'm going to die before I see it. Just like most Australians do. They die before they see their own country. Should that not be a crime? How many Australians have never climbed to the top of Ayers Rock? Some people in this room. How do you know whether Telstra really does work on the top of Ayers Rock? You just believe what they say, you know what I'm saying? You know, how many people have never been to Kakadu? How many people have never sailed the Whitsundays? How many people have never even, you know, seen every capital city in this country? And they live and die here. You go overseas and people say, you know, to people, oh, you've got a beautiful country, yet most Australians have never seen it. How many people have not travelled to virtually every continent on the planet? They live in this world, and many people never move more than 100 kilometres from where they were born. They live in this world, this giant playground. Why live on this planet and not go see it? And people think, yeah, one day, Jamie, I'll get around to that. But one day never comes, because they never say, hang on a minute, I've got to change some things. I've got to restructure my lifestyle. If I could take 1 week out of 4, would my life be better off at that? And most people, I dare say, you know, it does get difficult at times. I've got to admit there's sometimes when I've got a holiday plan, you know, 1 week out of 4, and I don't feel like going on that holiday. But if you're going to make this work, you have to be disciplined, and I force myself to go on that holiday. And every time I go on that holiday, you know, I've got so much to do, I'm excited about work and things like that, but I go on the holiday and I think, oh, I'm so glad I did. You know what's good about this? Because when I'm on my holiday, guess when the most creative ideas come to become wealthy? When you're on holidays, when you're away from work, because your mind's free, you're tapped into creativity, you're having fun, and the ideas flow. If you want to become wealthy, you need to think. You need to be creative. You need to brainstorm. You know, the challenge for me, I used to be slumped over a desk, fluorescent lights, grey walls, in an office in Sydney, and I wonder why I didn't feel energetic, you know, sitting in front of a computer. I wonder why the ideas didn't flow. I wonder why I got frustrated all the time. And then when I go away on a holiday, I'd feel on top of the world. I'd feel great. The ideas would flow. You sit around, you know, just walking along a beach, you know, the smell of the salt air, the sound of the crashing waves, the sand underneath your bare feet. The ideas, the thinking becomes clear, and you start to, I found life becomes a little bit easier. You start to solve the challenges and the problems and start to evolve and move on. That's why I love holidays, because I work on my life, not always in it. Where most Australians say, well, Jamie, that would never work for me. Well, most Australians are so busy making a living, they forget to live. Is that not true? They forget the idea of it. Someone's saying, Jamie, just show me the money then how to do this, and I'll organise my time. But having money is only one component of it. There's people in this country that can teach you how to have the money, but they don't have the lifestyle themselves. You know, I've coached some. I have to coach. I've got some people I coach that are worth several $100 million. They own hundreds of properties. They work their butts off all the time. You know, we're going on holidays all the time, yeah, with our friends and stuff, and invite them. Oh, they'd love to come, but they can't because they haven't organised their life that way. So what I want to share with you is not how to just become wealthy, but how to implement that so you have quality of life. And about 2.5 years ago, after I'd applied a lot of these strategies and produced some results I was happy with, we put a lot of money actually in time and effort into creating what's called 21st Century Academy. And I guess that's how we get to meet tonight, because, you know, we've educated now well in excess of 11,000 Australians, and, you know, the chance, you know, to help them and empower those people. And, you know, over the last 2.5 years, we've seen some amazing success stories. I've seen people be able to retire, replace their income, some people in a matter of a few weeks, others a few months, others takes, you know, a couple of years. But it's not like you're guinea pigs tonight. Does it make sense? It's not like I just thought of an idea this afternoon, okay, you know, and let's see whether this one works, you know what I'm saying? This stuff has been proven. My job is not to convince you of that. My job is just to educate you, those who want to know how to do it. Is that fair enough? And you can check anything out and get out there and take action with it. And that's what we'll be looking at, because the action will make the difference. So, as I mentioned before, you want to jot this down if you're not aware, most Australians are going to end up dead or dead broke at age 65. 96% will be either dead or dead broke. These are the same people that were taught just like me. Jamie, if you want to be successful in life, here's what you need to do. Go to school. At school, work really hard, get good grades, because that'll help you get a piece of paper, that'll help you get a job. Work really hard in that job for 40, 50 years, then you'll retire to the good life. I decided to check that story out, whether that's true. And tonight, I challenge you to check everything out that you've been taught up until now. Is it true? Is this much of a good life, dead or dead broke for most Australians? Doesn't look too good to me. 3% of Australians will manage to be financially independent, and 1% will become rich. Australian Bureau of Statistics will tell us that the 1% of the rich are people that have a net worth in excess of $1 million. And even those people still don't have the lifestyle they want, many of them, because their money is tied up in a house or property. Does that make sense? They may be wealthy on paper, they have to still work for money. That's even more frustrating. Can anyone relate to that? You know, being asset rich and cash flow poor, and we'll look at that tonight. A few words we need, if we're going to change this, some of my mentors pointed out to me, there's two things you need to understand, Jamie. One is you need to develop the mindset of a millionaire if you want to become one. You need to develop that first. The second thing you need is you need to have the right strategies, because otherwise, without strategies, you're going to waste a lot of time. Now, to start to understand that, he said what most people want is sort of like, you know, I was sort of like this, yeah, I know the mindset, that's all, yeah, I've already mastered that. I've read a few books on personal development. You know, I've walked across hot coals. I've got that mastered, okay? Just show me the money, you know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, just show me the money because I'm in dire straits now and I really need to pull something out of the hat. Okay? Just show me how to get it quick. And I was sort of like that. And he said, Jamie, you got to understand, most people just want the money. And they think that's the key. But he said that the strategies are important. Knowing how to make money while you sleep, knowing how to make money out of thin air, knowing how to eliminate debt rapidly, how to increase your income, knowing how to get, you know, finance for different things is important. But that only represents about 20% of what's necessary for you as an individual, Jamie, to become a self-made millionaire. 20%. The other 80% is, guess what? Mindset. Let me illustrate this for you. Imagine under this table right up the front here, imagine we have $1 million in cash, and it's sitting under there waiting. And tonight you have to make some decisions, okay? Life is about making a series of decisions. The better we get at making decisions, the better our life will be. And one of those decisions is, when I turn my back to write on the flip chart, you can sneak up here and grab as much as that $1 million cash as you can stuff in your pockets and do the bolt, okay? And go home and say, yeah, I knew that seminar would be worth it. Got money in my pocket already. Or you can say, okay, let's see if I can understand what we're talking about here. Or we can go to say, okay, that makes sense. I've got to work on my mindset, my psychology, how I relate to money, how I think about things, whether I procrastinate, whether I take action, what are my limitations, my fear, and go and work on that and get clear about my life and where I'm headed and be much more committed rather than, you know, etc. Or go for the cash. We said most Australians. What do you think most Australians would go for? The mindset or the cash? And most Australians would run for the cash. The way they're trying to get the cash right now is the biggest way is they're being taught, go to school, get a job, work for it. So they're working for money. It's very interesting, you know, the banking system, the systems that create money, do they work for money, yes or no? They don't work for money. They created this concept. They created the system. They don't work for money. They just create a system to tell all the masses, here's how you get money. You have to go out and work for it. You have to go and work for us, because we're not going to. We're going to create this thing, and the only way you can get it is you have to work for it. Many people buy that. That's what I thought to be true, and I was conditioned, convinced, which is really basically, in thinking that was the only way to make money is I just have to go out and work, struggle, etc. Now, I've got nothing against hard work. I like to work hard. But I think you should have be able to have the honour in life of working hard because you believe in something and it's something you want to do, not because you're constrained and have to work. There's a big difference. Is that true? 86% of Australians work in a job they're dissatisfied with. That's not healthy for them. Okay? So, mindset, where I was up to. The cash, they work for it. Another way they get the money is what's becoming very popular in this country. Is gambling becoming popular, yes or no? You know, we're winning all sorts of records in this country, and unfortunately many of the records are not good. We are one of the biggest amount of gambling consumers in the entire world. In New South Wales, they have more pokies per capita than Las Vegas. And I don't know what it's like in Queensland, but it's probably catching up, okay? Queenslanders like to always keep ahead of New South Wales, so you never know. And so, you know, we're big into gambling. Now, if it's just on the pun on the race, it's no big deal, but how many people put their money through the pokies non-stop? And the systems profit from that as well. So gambling, many people turn to that. That's usually not going to get us $1 million cap. But wait, there's another way. There's other ways to do it. Many people now have figured out, some people, you can go to seminars overseas. They'll teach you at these seminars how to marry into wealth. So if you don't like these strategies, some of you could still consider that. Who's still single? Raise your hand, you're still single? There's a strategy for you, okay? You can still consider marrying into wealth. It's mainly females they let into the seminars, but hey, if you're male, they may, if you pay more, they may let you in. You know what I'm saying? So marrying into wealth, for most of us, it's too late for that. So another strategy, I call it the waiting game, which is a little unfortunate, this waiting game, but what many Australians, unfortunately, are doing in the back of their mind, they might not admit it up front, but they look at their clock. And they're figuring out, you know, it's unfortunate, but one day their parents will pass away. The average Australian dies within 2.7 years of retirement, and that will happen, but you know, that will probably, by then their house should be paid off. And they're probably thinking, well, I'll perhaps kick my sister out of the will by then and get the whole house to myself. Don't need to go to any seminars or take care of money because I'm just going to inherit the wealth. Okay? Now we laugh about that, but is there estates that people fight over? You know, it happens all the time. So obviously we don't want to do that either. Let's our parents, you know, enjoy their wealth and create our own. And well, there's always the big one. The big one in Australia that people pay money to virtually every week. Lotto. Can't wait to win. Let the big one drop. And we think about winning Lotto. Now the chances of winning Lotto are pretty small. And one of the reasons it's very small is because some of the people who actually won Lotto not only won it once, they've won it twice. So what hope is there for some of the rest of us to win it once? They won it twice, you know. So the people that do win Lotto 3 to 7 years later, are they better off financially? Many of them, surveys have shown they're worse off. In other words, we could give people the $1 million cash. Here, surely you could live your dreams now on this $1 million cash. But they can't. They're worse off. So was it the cash that they really needed in the first place? Or was it the mindset combined with the right strategies? If they were given that and they were taught and helped understand that till they could apply it, that is more valuable than $1 million. And what I'm trying to suggest to you tonight, whether you believe it or not, is that if you're willing to go on a journey and pay the price, and that price is just putting your time and dedication into an effort into understanding and learning a new education around these things and developing the mindset and the strategies, it's worth more than $1 million. It's been worth a lot more than $1 million to me, because you can create that wealth, whatever wealth you want to create, and more importantly, have a quality of life. Does that make sense? So we talked about before, because most people, you know, in Germany, they actually did that after World War II. They didn't actually give everyone $1 million, but they, you know, devalued the currency, so everyone was starting at zero again. Everyone was starting virtually equally. And, but the reality was, within a little over 12 months, the money was back in the hands of the people that had it in the first place. So when it was like made equal, like divided equally, because we could divide all the wealth from the planet right now. Imagine if we did it, everyone would be worth $3 million. That means even people that are starving. Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Who's had a chance to read Robert's book? No doubt many of you, and I highly recommend that. Go buy that tomorrow if you haven't read that book. Robert's a great author on the subject of money. He talks about, he wrote another book before that. It was an international bestseller. And the book was called, If You Want to Be Rich and Happy, Don't Go Where? You don't go to school. And boy, did that, you know, upset some people, especially when it come out in the States. And so if you're at school right now, that doesn't mean that tomorrow you quit school. Okay? Wasn't quite what Robert was suggesting, but he was trying to highlight to the general population that, you know, if our education system is so great, then, you know, why is it that so many people are failing miserably in their life? You know, there's must be something that's going on, because surely we could be taught at school the fundamentals that have us, you know, excel in our life. And he talked about that school, our education systems are really only designed to teach us how to get a job. Does it make sense? At school, we leave year 10 or year 12 with a piece of paper. We take that piece of paper to an employer, and hopefully they'll give us a job. But in today's world, you know, HSC, or what do you call it in Queensland? It's different in every state. And you get a piece of paper. Then you have to now go to university. And you get a bit bigger piece of paper, and hopefully that'll give you not just a job, but a higher paying job. That's the idea of universities around there. And that's very handy if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. Obviously, if you're going to spend more time at university, you deserve, no doubt, a higher paying job. And that's the way that education system works. But never in our education system are we taught how to have money work for us. we're only ever taught how to work for money in the sake of a job. And he started to highlight these things. And I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He also said our education system was designed in the 19th century. In other words, we all went to a 20th century school, but that school was designed in the 19th century. And what century are we now in, by the way? 21st century. And once I started to understand this, what I started to look at for myself many years ago is I started to look for some solutions. And I'll jot down, if you want, some different solutions that I use. But I just figured out if I want to excel in today's world, then it would be very handy to have an education designed for today's world. Most of our education system, I believe personally, is outdated. It does not equip us to be successful at life. And we see a lot of evidence of that. So what I said to myself, I said, imagine if I could get the ideal education. If I had a second chance, what would I want to be taught at school? What would set me up for life? The first thing, you might want to put this into your education, the first thing I said, I want to be taught how to have money work for me. In other words, we call that financial intelligence. I'd want to be taught how to have money work for me so I could choose a career by choice, not because I need the money. That makes sense? Who else would want that taught in their own education? That would probably be number one on many people's list. The other thing that I added, though, because I was smart enough to realize that you need more than just money. Money is only one part of success in our lives. The other thing is to make that work is a thing I call emotional intelligence. In other words, how to be able to deal with life more effectively, to be trained to be able to respond to life rather than react. Because we don't control necessarily everything that can happen to us. Does it make sense? There's things out there that can happen to us that we don't always can control. But do we control how we respond to that, yes or no? So by understanding that, we can take charge of our emotions and be more effective in life. And you'll find the most successful people are able to respond to life more effectively than the average person who just reacts. The other area that I'll look at, and I'll just go through this very briefly because it's in some of your notes which you can take home with you, is a thing called RPA. That's a system that I use to be very results focused, be able to work less but achieve more. And number 4 is what I call 4 key skills. Practical skills that will make a big difference to your life. And number 5 is designing your ideal life. In other words, taking the time to plan how you want your life to be. Designing a life. So the aspects of this, for instance, who can remember vinyl records? Raise your hand if you can remember vinyl records. Okay? And some of you I know you can remember. You just don't want to give me. It's not that many years ago, is it? Vinyl records. We all would remember vinyl records. That used to employ, in American City, over 100,000 people were employed directly or indirectly in supporting that industry, in the vinyl record industry. And the interesting thing is that what replaced vinyl records virtually overnight? CDs. Now, these people that were working in that industry, they had a school education and university, some of them. At that university or school were taught specialised education. Is that true? To be an accountant, you need a specialised knowledge. To be a nurse, you need specialised knowledge. To be a plumber, etc. They had a specialised education to be able to do well in the vinyl record industry. Now that industry was wiped out virtually overnight. How valuable was all their years of training to have that specialised knowledge now? It was useless to them. It was worth nothing in the marketplace. Now, in the 21st century, are industries and companies likely to disappear and change at a more rapid rate, yes or no? So in other words, if most of the people out there, most of the people being taught a specialised education only, like at school or university, then they're very ill-equipped for today's world. So what I did was the exact opposite. And what I mean by these different skills, 4 key skills are practical skills such as communication, negotiation, the ability to problem solve, the ability to think creatively, how to take an idea and make it a reality. Those sort of skills I find are generalist skills. In other words, they're general skills. See, if someone was trained, let's say someone in the vinyl record industry was trained in those skills, that industry could disappear. But could they take those skills of being a good negotiator, communicator, problem solver to virtually any other industry and profit, yes or no? And that's what we start to see. By applying different skills, it helps us implement the financial strategies better and excel in the 21st century. And those that have that, what you've got to, I'm trying to get the point across, is let's compare this. Someone that has mastered financial intelligence, emotional intelligence, they're results focused and purpose driven in life. They develop the 4 key skills and they've designed and planned their life the way they would like it. And they're good at that versus someone that only has a school education or university education, as great as that may be for them. In life in the 21st century, if you had to bet on who's going to create the most extraordinary quality of life, someone that just has a normal education versus someone that has mastered this education, who's going to win in the game of life? It starts to become obvious, doesn't it? But most people don't have that. Most people are very ill-equipped. And that's why in the Paul Zane Pilzer is an instant gentleman I met many years ago. He wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth. Some of you may have read it. He's a presidential advisor to US presidents and people like this, a leading economist. About the only economist I've ever met that actually makes any sense. And he actually was quite wealthy himself. That's why. I think he's the only economist that actually is wealthy. Most economists are not wealthy. And, but he talked about it, and I asked him, he said, what do you think will be the biggest industry in the 21st century? You know what he said? Adult education. And he said the reason for that is because the world is changing so rapidly, people are going to have to be continually retrained to be able to adapt to the new world. And that's going to create a huge industry. And we're starting to see that already now in Australia. And I had no idea at the time that I'd end up in this industry. But down the track, that's what happened. And that's why it's becoming so large. Here's what I want you to do tonight. It's not just about information, it's about you understanding this. So in a moment, I want you to turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself if you don't know who they are. If it's your spouse, introduce yourself anyhow. And I want you to teach them or share with them 2 things you've learned so far tonight. And they'll share back 2 things they've learned. And it has to be 2 different things you can't copy. And I'll walk around the room and see who hasn't been listening. And we'll do that. You've got 60 seconds for that. And we've got a bit more to go through and we'll have a break in about 10 minutes. Okay, go for it quickly. Financial intelligence. Let's look at a quick definition of that. Imagine instead of giving everyone $1 million, we gave them $10,000. What would happen to that money in 12 months' time? 80% of Australians would have how much left, do you think? 0. They would spend it all. 16% of the population would have about $10,050 left. Where do you think they may have put it? Which bank? Probably doesn't matter, does it? 3% of the population would be able to take that $10,000 and turn it into as much as $20,000 inside a year. Who would like to know how to do that consistently? That's what we focus on tonight. That's up to 100% on your money. 20, 40, 60, 80%, up to that, doubling your money. And the strategies we'll look at tonight because they're quite practical and realistic for the average person if they're committed and if they're educated the right way. There'd be less than 1% of the population could turn that amount of money into as much as $1 million inside a year. Anyone like to know how to do that? Okay. Got some good news for you and some bad news. We won't be covering that tonight. Okay. Why? It's 5 different reasons. One, to do that is not practical for most people. It's not realistic. Some people will do it, but a very small minority of people. Where this is, I believe, is more realistic. So stick to strategies that the average person can do, keeps it simple, it's possible. Master that, then we can consider jumping to that level. Okay, but we never have to even go to that level. Okay, a few words we need to understand. Financial words, assets and liabilities. Most people seem to know what they are. However, let me ask you a simple question. Do banks make record profits in this country, yes or no? Yes. Does the average Australian make record profits? No, so in other words, not picking on the banking industry. However, it seems to be a win-lose relationships for most Australians. What I'm about, is any bank executives watching in, is having a win-win relationship. In other words, banks profit more from me because I'm wealthy now because I borrow a lot of money. Okay? They profit. I don't mind them profiting from my transactions. But as long as I'm profiting as well. That's a win-win. So I've got nothing against banks making record profits. I'm happy to help them make more profits on the condition the average Australian gets to share in more of it as well. Is that fair enough? So what I mean with banks, the banks will allow us to believe certain things are assets. If you fill out a bank application to get a car or home, etc., what are some of the things they'll let you put down as an asset? House, car, boat, yeah. Furniture, yeah. And we never ever, overestimate what our furniture's worth, do we? Okay. And all those different things, your CD collection, whatever. You're allowed to list it as assets. Now, they may not give you security on it, but you can list a whole pile of things. And liabilities are obviously different, okay? Now, if we're going to create wealth, I think we need to think differently to most people. Do the opposite to the banks. So I don't count those things as assets. The only things that I count as assets, my definition of an asset, is something that will make me money while I sleep. Is that fair enough? In other words, if it'll bring money in while I'm sleeping, then it's useful. That's a real asset. If you want lifestyle. Okay? Robert Kiyosaki has another definition which is pretty good as well. He'll talk about an asset as something that will put cash in your pocket if you were to stop working. Okay? Cash in your pocket if you stop working. Therefore, if we use that definition, very few people have real assets. And a liability is the exact opposite, which means it would be something that would take cash out of your pocket. Does anyone have anything that takes, or anyone that takes cash out of your pocket? Yeah. So the great Australian dream is you own what? Home. And which system sells that? The banking system. And of course there's no agenda behind why they might encourage a lot of Australians to borrow for their own home. Did you know in an average 25-year home loan, in the first 7 years of that, an average Australian's paying over $1,000 a month now, in the first 7 years, that 89% of those repayments, in other words, that's $890 out of every $1,000 monthly repayment, is gross profit to the bank. And only 11% goes to paying off the house. Not a bad business, is it? Imagine that. And you've got people begging for your product, sign on the dotted line, and you now get the right to send us $1,000 a month, and we're going to make money while we sleep. Okay? But you're going to have to work for that money. Okay? So in other words, if we bought a home and we're paying that home off that we live in, under the old definition, it's counted as an asset. If we were to use these new definitions, would it be an asset or liability? Who says liability? Okay. There's no right or wrong. Remember, it's up to you how you think and how you want this to be. But those who say liability, why? It's taking cash out of your pocket. Obviously, you're paying money to the bank, etc. So it's taking cash, and is it putting cash in your pocket? So under the new definition, it would be a liability. What if, though, we manage to pay that house off? The great Australian dream then is to pay it off, because most people think debt is all bad. So they want to pay that house off as quickly as possible. And if we manage to do that and we're still living in that house, using the new definition, would it be an asset or liability? Who says liability? Okay, it's up to you. Who says asset? Who's not going to put their hand up? 50-50 chance of being right. You might as well go for one of them. So there's no right or wrong. It's up to you what you want to think. But under the new definition, those who say liability, why would you say liability? Still taking cash out for what? You paid rates, maintenance. Is it putting insurance? Okay. Is it putting cash in your pocket? Not unless you charge, rent to your kids or your spouse. That'd go down well, wouldn't it? So I know it's a tough definition. Now, are we suggesting then, does that mean tomorrow we all put our houses on the market? No, but it's to look at it as a concept and say, if we want to become wealthy, we're going to need some things to put cash in our pocket without working. And that means we've just got to change our thinking slightly. The other thing I mentioned is a word called debt. We need to clarify this now because this is another thing that holds a lot of people back. I had a lot of debt. It took me a long time to pay that debt back. But one of the things I said, I will never get into debt ever again. I'll pay cash for everything. That was my mindset. That was my thinking. And I understand that there's some people in the room that think that way as well. Pay cash for everything, All debt is bad. And I used to think that until one of my mentors said, Jamie, I can understand why you think that. However, if you think all debt is bad, it's going to limit you massively in your wealth creation. It's going to hold you back. He said, not all debt is bad. Here's what I want you to consider. That bad debt is something that you borrow money for that drops in value. And it's probably difficult now to imagine, can anyone guess the classic bad debt most Australians get that drops in value as soon as they drive it out the showroom door? The car is a classic bad debt. And Australians aren't happy with just one of them. They get 2 or 3 for the household. A good debt is obviously the opposite. A good debt is something that you borrow money for, but it goes up in value. In just a moment, we're going to go for a break. I'll tell you, when we come back in, here's some of the things that we want to cover. We want to go through, first of all, we're going to look at 8 steps to get started. So how can you, 8 ways that you can come up with some money or more money to start investing within the next 30 to 90 days. Does that make sense? Because many of you in this room could be replacing your income with some of these strategies in a very short period of time. So when we come back in, you want to take down all the figures as we go through it, time and time again until you understand it, okay? Then we're going to look at how to make some money out of thin air. Now, many people think that's impossible. Banks do it all the time. If the banks can do it, why can't we do it? We can do it if we understand some simple strategies. We're going to use a way to come up with at least, the average Australian example can come up with $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in the near future, so within 90 days, out of thin air. Because that extra money we can create, we can take and invest, okay, wherever we can get money from. Then we're going to look at shares. We'll look at, go through 6 share strategies, what I call fast-track strategies. We're going to focus on 2 in particular. And that one of my favorite strategies, which I love to teach other people because I know it works so well, it's rather simple, and you can get into action with it immediately. And that's what I call how to rent out shares. Now, how to rent out shares, one of the lowest to medium risk strategies available in the share market and generate instant cash. Let everyone else take all the risk, and we don't even have to take hardly any risk at all. And I'll go through that. You're going to love it, okay? Even if you hate shares, so Jamie, I just want to know about property. Shares suck, okay? I guarantee you I'll change your mind on that subject. And then we're going to look at also, because I don't just invest in shares, I invest threefold. One is into your income. So when I was starting, I had to look at how to increase my income so I've got more money that I can put aside. The second area was that, it's shares and property. So those 3 areas. So I also invest in property in conjunction with shares. So we're going to look at an example of how to get some tax-free money out of property and how it's possible to retire on just 2 quality investment properties. So you can go to seminars and you've got some friends that will teach you how to buy 100 or 200 investment properties. Nothing wrong with that. But for the average Australian, I think, 100, 200 investment properties might be a little bit more than what they intend doing right now. But if I could show you how just 2 investment properties could set yourself up for life financially and retire from, then you say, if that can set me up for life, what if I got 5 or 10 over a period of time? Okay? And that's when we look at how to do that and get some tax-free money out of it and different things you can do with that. So a lot to get through. My intention is to spend as much time as I can in detail so you understand the things. But I will be honest with you, it took me a little bit more than a few hours to master all this stuff. So some of you at the end, when we go through this, may want, you may want more intensive training, you may want more access to some contacts, and some of this stuff, contacts will help, or some extra coaching and things like that. Last 2 minutes before we wrap up tonight, I'll tell you a little bit about 21st Century Academy, how they work as an organisation, and how they're assisting other Australians in making sure they take action with these different strategies and put it into their life. Okay? However, that's not for everyone. So I'll just let you know how it works for those who want to know more about it. Does that make sense? Okay, class, welcome back. Raise your hand if you're ready to learn some more. How do we get started with investing to get into these strategies straight away? What I'm going to suggest is if you can come up with $15,000 or more, then you can make some good return on your money. Okay, you can start to make some good instant cash flow. Now some of you are saying, well, I don't have $15,000. Doesn't matter, we'll figure out where we can come up with that money. Okay, so there's one way we can come up with the money, which is very basic, but it's important. What I had to learn to do was save some money. Australians are classic savers, yes or no? No, we win another record. We're one of the worst savers on the entire planet. You know, there's only one other country that has a worse record as far as savings per capita than Australia. Can anyone guess where that country is? New Zealand. And I think the only reason that is because they couldn't beat us in anything, so they've finally found out something they can beat us in. Okay. So no doubt there's a few Kiwis here. Actually, no, New Zealand's a great country. I actually have a home over there, and I love going to Queensland and to Queenstown and New Zealand. And you know what I love about New Zealand? It's the only place, only other country on the planet where actually our dollar's worth anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I love that about New Zealand. So saving is important. We need, as a nation, you know, a saving, whether you're saving, I think from a psychology aspect, is a direct reflection of whether you believe you have a future. See, if most Australians are not saving, what it says is that they don't believe they have a future that's worth investing in, which is not healthy as a nation. So we really need to change that because Australia's been bought out. One of the reasons we're getting bought out and have virtually nothing left of our assets is because we're not good managers of our money, culturally. So number two is we could sell something. Now, I don't mean you have to rush out and join Tupperware tomorrow. That's not what I'm suggesting. But could you have a garage sale? Could you cash some stuff in? Do you have some spare furniture, spare car, spare boat, spare bike, spare spouse, spare kid? Anything, okay, that you convert to cash, okay? So convert it to cash, it's only a couple of $1,000s. A few $1,000s plus save a bit, put it all together is now getting you in a position where you can start to make some instant cash flow. That's what we're looking for. Number three is a thing called tax. Jot that down. Anyone got any objections to reducing your tax liabilities? Anyone like to reduce your tax liabilities? Legally, of course. Yep. So what I'm suggesting is Australia wins another record. Okay, we are one of the highest tax nations on the planet. Geez, we're great in economic areas, aren't we? So we're winning that record as well. I'm now, as an Australian, I believe if you live in this country and you want to live here, we should pay some tax. Is that fair enough? Number five, income. Where I talked about before, I went to work on increasing my income 5 years ago by using some strategies. I don't have time to go into the strategies tonight. You can watch some of them on the video if you get a free trial. With that, but I'll give you a quick story. Lady in Melbourne, young lady, we taught her in our intensive training some simple strategies of how to negotiate with your employer to increase your salary virtually instantly. Some ways you can go about doing that. She was earning $28,000 a year. She was able to negotiate 2 weeks later after learning that. She was promoted and earning $48,000 a year. She was very happy with that. That's a dramatic jump for her. But it's not just so much so you can earn more money, because most people just spend more. It's to earn more so you can put more into investing. And also, let me ask you this question. If you earn $48,000 a year versus 28, will the banks loan you more money, yes or no? Yes. That's the key. So the more you can earn, the more you can show, the more you can be able to borrow. Number five is a thing called OPM. OPM stands for what, do you think? Other people's money. So leverage. So a lot of people say you've got to have money to make money. Well, you can get other people's money. There's ways to overcome that. Let me give you an example. Let's say you were saving $100 a week. Okay, jot that down. That means over a year you'd save about $5,000. And let's say we're after $15,000 to get into some good investments that can see immediate return. That's going to take us how many years? 3 years to come up with 15 grand. Quickly jot down for me, if you will. How long is it taking you to save your last 15,000? Just jot that down. So how can we get started sooner? Could we, for instance, what if we did this? Could we borrow $15,000 right up front, starting, say, next week? If we were to borrow that money, obviously it helps if we have a job. Okay, would that help? Now, if we don't have a job, what might be a good idea? Starting off 5 years ago to get a job was I went and worked for free. Most people are not willing to do that, are they? Go and do a week's trial for free. Okay? Is the employer going to be happy if someone's willing to work for free? That gives you a great head start. Okay? Simple way. Also negotiate up and get paid more. $15,000. If you get a personal loan, how else can we borrow this? Credit card, family, friends, numerous different ways. You've got to figure out how to come up with some money. Okay? We come up with that money. Let's say that's going to cost us probably $75 a week in repayments. Is it fair enough? Ballpark, depends how you borrow it. So we've got to come up with that $75 a week from somewhere. We're already saving $100 a week. Let's say an example. Could we take that money that we're saving and use that to pay off the loan? Without, effect. So we take that and use it to pay off the loan. So that's going to pay that off, taken care of. What it gives us, though, is $15,000 right up front to invest immediately and use some strategies on. So we take that $15,000, then it's a question of being educated to know where to invest it. One place I know that I like to invest in with $15,000, or more obviously, with $15,000 I know, like right now, next week, today, next month, whenever you wanted to do this, and some Australians will go through tonight, that $15,000 in a low to medium risk strategy could generate you anywhere from $500 per month up to, say, $1,200 a month, sometimes more, per month, in instant cash flow, without the need to work for that money. Repeat after me. Something to think about. Money sitting in super is a much higher level risk than some of these things. Buying a car, much bigger risk. Okay? This can be done with less risk than all those things, and you could generate that sort of return on $15,000. You could then, if you got really creative, if you were taught how to get leverage, you could turn that $15,000, and even if you were bankrupt, you'd be able to get a loan for at least another $30,000. Just as an example, I'm not saying rush out and do this, but as an example. You could be bankrupt and still get money loaned to you. Okay? So if you're not bankrupt, it's going to be even easier. Let's say in a strategy I don't want to cover tonight, you could turn that $15,000, borrow another $30,000 would give you $45,000. Just use an example here, how you can turn money into more. $45,000. If $15,000 produces that, that's 3 times the amount. Times this by 3 is going to now be $1,500 up to what? $3,600. Instant cash. Most months of the year. Repeat after me. Something to think about. The key is obviously knowing how to do that. One, having the mindset to be able to take action with it. But you can see how a very small amount of money can all of a sudden turn into enough income to replace most people's income. With less risk than what they're doing right now. Is there risk involved in this? Yes, there's risk to everything. But we're already taking risks. We're going to talk about taking less risk, but earning much more. Sounds so good to be true, doesn't it? Would you like to see it in detail so you can check it out? Okay. We'll come back to that in a moment. We have to finish here. Number 6, how else can you come up with some money? Equity. That's a common way you can come up with some money. Many of you are sitting in the room here with equity. Think, where can I get some money from? We have equity we could use. Okay, I'll give you an example at the moment. So we say, well, that's all right for those people that have money. What about me? I don't have any equity. Doesn't matter. We've got that covered. Okay? So number 7, strategy. Just use your parents' equity. That's what they're for, right? Now let's put the opposite test, okay? Most people wait till their parents die to collect their inheritance. We're going to do the exact opposite. Why wait? Draw it down early. Now, I know some people consider that very ruthless strategy, okay? But what's more ruthless? Now, when you think about it. Now, do most parents want to see their sons and daughters do better in their life, have a successful life? I'd say yes, most do. So why not use, if they could be taught a fraction of that, their equity, to help that wealth expand in the family and give them a kickstart? Because don't they use some of their wealth to help them buy a car, guarantor, etc., which is dissipating the wealth, etc.? So it's not really ruthless at all. I was an interesting reporter come to one of my seminars recently. Has anyone read the Money magazine recently? Yeah, Paul Clitheroe, Money magazine. They did an article on people such as myself, and they weren't exactly as positive because they're financial planners basically, and they don't like the truth. And they were saying, Mr. McIntyre, is these strategies we apparently espouse at these sort of seminars are highly ruthless. We take advantage of misfortune and things like that, which is, jot this down, bullshit, okay? But that sells, and they're saying, Mr. McIntyre addresses his congregation, the words they use, congregation, and he's so ruthless in his strategies that he even suggests that people draw down their parents' equity. How ruthless is that? Something to that sort of words. Okay? But let's look at it really. Now, is that a ruthless strategy, yes or no? Super is number 8, superannuation. Many people just got lazy super there. They don't even count as money that could be turned into a cash flow machine. Okay? It's becoming much more popular now, but you can use that money more effectively. Here's what I want you to do. Quickly circle which one of these 8 you're currently utilizing in your investment strategies. In other words, which ones you're using. Some of you have done that already. Okay. And then put a question mark next to the ones you could be using but you're not. Even if you knew about this already, but why aren't you using it? Put a question mark next to it. Quickly jot that down, turn to the person next to you and just share with them if you'd like which ones you could be using but you're not. And why aren't you using them? 30 seconds, go quickly. Let's use equity, for instance. If you wanted to use equity, some people don't even know they can use their equity in their house. Let's say you have a $150,000 house, and the bank owns $100,000 of it. In other words, that's your mortgage on it. How much equity do you have in that property? $50,000. Now, so let's say Bill and Mary own this house. Bill and Mary, average Australians. They could say, yeah, I'd love to generate returns like this, but I simply don't have any money. Or do they? They have $50,000 there. It's like sitting in a bank account that's just sitting there not doing anything. They could actually use some of that for investing. And they're like, don't want to risk losing it. Fair enough, Bill and Mary. However, if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. Okay, we're going to die and it's just going to be sitting there and there's no point to that. So could we use it intelligently with minimal risk and be able to speed up our retirement? The answer is yes. So what I suggest, one way they could draw out some of that money is through a line of what? So jot that down, because we're going to come back to that later. Line of credit. And they could draw out, say, anywhere up to probably $20,000 would be about the maximum. They could draw out in cash if they wanted to and can do whatever they want with that money. Now, some people do that and they go and spend that money. That's not what we're suggesting here. We're only ever going to use that money to invest and invest wisely, so it's going to grow more for us. Okay? And the great thing about a line of credit, raise your hand if you've already got a line of credit on at least one property. Yep. Doesn't take long to set up, does it? Generally? Okay. Yeah, it depends on the bank, but generally they can be set up fairly quickly. It depends on your financials, how much they'll give it to you. Okay? But on property, if you've got a property, you can get money out of property if you have enough equity there, even if you're bankrupt. You know what I'm saying? People say, I can't get money. The banks won't let me get money out of my property. If you have the right contacts, you could be bankrupt and you still get money out of property. Okay? It's just being creative or having the contacts. That $20,000, Bill and Mary said, we don't want to risk losing your house. We'll say, well, here's all we want you to do. 1, we want you to be prepared for investing. Many people at the time, it takes just getting organised. 2, you want to be looking for investment opportunities if you want to become wealthy, or have people looking for you so they bring them to you. And 3, you need to be able to make a decision and take action. Those 2 things hold most people back. So Bill and Mary had that setting up. For instance, there was give an example of an investment opportunity. There was a house worth over $50,000 in where I grew up, in a town called Glen Innes. And it was sold, and it was advertised freely by the council. The council didn't own it, but the council put it up for auction. It was sold for $14,000. So let's look at this for an example. If Bill and Mary used some of this money to buy that property and it's for 14,000, it's worth 50,000. Is that taking a lot of risk on their money? Very little risk in that, isn't it? That's a no-brainer. So just by being prepared for opportunity, knowing how to make a decision, then they could take advantage of things like that. Those opportunities happen. How often? All the time, but most people don't know that. And I'm not saying lead that as your only strategy, but they're out there, okay? That, for instance, is a council default, okay, where councils, they're doing a lot more now, councils, that they're getting less tolerance. If you don't pay your rates, they'll auction your house. And they use a scare campaign to get people to pay their rates, but often people still don't pay their rates. And you can pick up property cheap. Usually it's only land you'll pick up cheap, but you can also buy houses cheap and things like that. Just as an example, my dad, for instance, I was helping him and I giving him some coaching. There was a farm worth around about $1 million near our farm. And in New South Wales, where our farm is, the banks have a habit there, and I don't know whether they have that habit up here, but what they do there is foreclose on farmers. It's one of the bank's hobbies. And they foreclosed on this poor farmer and sold the farm for $180,000. If you understand why they would do that, well, that's about all the banks need to get out of it to cover their bottom line. And $1 million farm was sold for that. And more farmers off the land. I said to my dad, you know, if you're prepared for that opportunity, you could have went in an afternoon's work and bought a farm for $180,000 that's worth $1 million. Made $800,000 in an afternoon's work. As I said to Dad, you probably wouldn't be able to live on that, but it should be a good start to your retirement. You know what I'm saying? By being prepared to take advantage of opportunity. Now, some people say, isn't that taking advantage of someone? Well, let's consider it. I think the banks are taking advantage of someone, but that's obviously okay. But could you, and if you're in a position as an investor, could you come along to this farmer and say, look, if you're aware of the situation, I will guarantee I'll take over your payments so the bank can't take the property and sell it like that. And on the condition that we share some of the equity. Could you do that? In other words, you could become a successful investor by helping other people out of their situations. There's no need to be ruthless. Where this ruthless methodology come from, I don't know. There's obviously people out there who do it that way. But I mean, who would rather become wealthy by being generous and helping other people? Raise your hand. I think most people would. And because I think people that are ruthless, it's going to come back and bite them, you know, where it hurts. So that's what we're going to look at. Let's look at making some money out of thin air. The same $150,000 house, how can we get access to some more cash to start investing? One way you do it is get your house revalued. Get your property revalued. Ring the bank, ring a value, get it revalued. There's a fair chance most people haven't valued their property in the last few years. It could have went up. This house could now be worth $160,000. That would be quite handy to us because we could borrow against that more cash to put into investments. You understand what we're doing here? Or how could you manipulate this property to make it worth more? In other words, what could you do to, if you were to spend, say, even $20,000, you wouldn't even need to spend $20,000. If you spent $20,000 on fixing this house up, what are some things you could do to the house to make it worth more? Paint it would be probably the first thing. Can paint make a big difference? What else could you do to it? So you'd watch Backyard Blitz. The two most common rooms in a house are kitchen and bathroom. Okay, you redecorate those things. You're not, you know, spending a lot of money, just enough to make it look better. $20,000 on a house like this is probably way more than you'd need to. Okay, but if they'd spent that money wisely, it's quite possible that house could now be worth $200,000 when it's revalued. You know, you painted it, you cleaned up the garden, you made a nice garden, your kitchen, bathroom's been modernised. It's a different house. And if it's now worth $200,000, they've spent $20,000, but it's gone up by an extra $50,000 in value. That leaves them a profit out of thin air of what? Of $30,000. In other words, spent 20, they made 50, left with 30. Do they need to sell that house to realize that profit? No, it just has to be worth that because then they can borrow against it and use money for investing. Okay? Now, who in the room has already added value to a house and had a good experience in that? Raise your hand. Okay, a few people. Anyone like to give me an example? I'd like 2 examples of how much you bought the property for.
It's now worth $260.
$260. So you spent a lot of money, okay, and it's worth $260. So 80, spent 90, it's worth $260. Anyone got an example where they just spent a small amount? Yeah, down the back, sir.
Put a granny flat on the house.
Yeah.
Borrow 10,000 equity. Put a granny flat on. I bought the house at 150.
150, spent 10,000.
Now valued at 230.
230. Fantastic. They're getting the concept. So you're spending a small amount of money. Now this is quite a common strategy now, but many Australians still manage to stuff it up. You know what I'm saying? Is they go and put, great. Now I've got an excuse to put the big pool in the back. Okay, let's put a second story on the house up the top. Okay, knock out a few walls. Costs a lot of money, and the valuation may not really go up as much. And in Adelaide, there was this young girl, and she used this strategy. She spent $1,000. That's all she had. Didn't have a lot of money. Spent $1,000 on a house. Tidied it up, bit of paint here, etc. You don't need a lot of money if you get creative, and it increased the valuation by $20,000. That left with $19,000 extra growth. One little idea kickstarts your ability to get into investments. That's what we're looking at here. Okay, and then if you get smart, you'd adopt this strategy to other. If you get into property as well, it's quite effective as well. Okay, so now we're getting access to more money. Let's move on to the shares, shall we? Okay. Where do we start investing this money? I like some good, simple share strategies first. The reason I like it because it's instant. If you can see instant results, I think why we've had success in the academy and helping people because they've used strategies that are more instant, where you can see results quickly, you stay motivated then. I mean, there's nothing more motivating than getting more money into your bank account every month. Would you agree? You don't have to worry about staying motivated if the strategies are working for you. You'll automatically be motivated. And then what we're going to do is then develop some longer term strategies. Now with shares, anything you know about shares right now, forget about it, okay? Just put it to the side for a little while and entertain some new ideas, okay? Keep it simple. XYZ is the company we're looking at, okay? Let's say XYZ company is on the Australian Stock Exchange. The share price is currently at $16. The question is, okay, we're going to invest in shares, we've got to buy a company, we've got to select a company, and we've got to select what price to buy it at. Most people have no idea how to come up with that decision. Because people don't know how to make a decision, they're lazy, what they want is someone else to advise them. Is that true? What share to buy? They take a hot tip, or they're just going to guess and hope it works out, which is a great recipe for success, no doubt. And in the share market, many people think stockbrokers are share market experts. Many people think that. And I often say to people, why do you think they're called brokers? Because most of them are broke, okay? Not all of them. There is some good ones that actually invest, but they're not trained also. To be a broker, they don't have to be trained to be share investors. Actually, if you knew what it takes to be a broker, they get very little training in that area. So you've got to be aware of that. So what I'm suggesting, if you want to be a good investor, you don't rely just on advice of others. You want to make your own decisions. And two, you don't want to guess. You want to have a sense of certainty. A criteria is what I mean, to know how to make your decisions. So I have a simple criteria in shares. And one criteria you can use is, let's say you could get information, what we call historical data. And that historical data, let's say you can get a 12-month data on what's been happening with XYZ over the last 12 months. And you got that information, which you can get quite freely these days. You can go to websites tonight when you get home, or tomorrow, Australian Stock Exchange, different broking houses, different banks, and they'll have a lot of this information available for you. And this information, let's say this particular share, it shows you the share went up to here, and this is about $19. And then it was worked its way back down. Then it's went back up to here, back down, up, up. So you see that data, etc. And that's all you see. And you can get that information for free, or you can buy some software, $100 odd, and it will tell you how to show you that. To buy it now, to make a decision, to buy that share at $16, do you need to guess or take advice to make that decision? Who would consider buying it at $16? Raise your hand. Okay. Instantly you become a share market expert. Because now you have some criteria to base a decision on. What if I try this investing game and I lose money? What will my friends think? Now, who am I to think I could become a millionaire anyhow? What's wrong with this house I live in? Who do you think you are? That sort of attitude, and people starting to step out. But most people don't have the courage to do the opposite of most people. So fear, you can jot down here, fear will stop people from often buying a share at a good price. Then when it gets up to here, greed will stop people from selling it at a good price. They're like, yeah, we know we should sell it around here, but it might just go another couple of dollars. I don't want to sell and miss out. The greed gets to them. The fear and greed. Can anyone relate to this? Anyone's invested in shares? No, yes, we have to deal with this. Fear, greed. What we're looking at is to buy a share at a low price. That minimises our risk. And then we wanted to sell it at a good price. And in there we may say 20%. If it does it once, it's possible you could do it again. You could buy again, you could sell again. Buy, sell. You can make money in between. Just one strategy if you wanted to follow this. You'd buy, you'd sell, you'd buy, you'd sell. If it did 4 times a year, like in that example, you could be looking at anywhere up to 80% return on your money with no extra risk than just buying a share at a low price. Everyone follow me here? That would be called channeling. If you want to jot that down, that's called channeling as a strategy. Is there shares in the Australian stock market that channel up and down at least 4 times in a year? The answer is yes. Okay? So if you're not sure of any questions are asked in the second session, nearly all the answers to the questions are asked in the second session are yes. Okay? So if you get tired, you just go, yes. Okay? And you'll probably be right. Number 2 is what we're going to look at as a thing called leverage. Jot that down. We mentioned that before. What do I mean by leverage? Well, if you only have $10,000 to invest into shares and you make 20% return on your shares, you're going to make $2,000. Let's say you make 20%. You make $2,000 profit. If you've got leverage, you can get someone to loan you another $10,000, which is very straightforward in the share market. It can be done with anyone. Anyone in this room, if you had $10,000, you can get a loan for another $10,000 within 48 hours, as long as you're 18. Okay? If you're not 18, you may have to get your parents to, sign on the dotted line. Now you've got $20,000 worth of shares. In that example, you'd make $4,000 less some interest you may have to pay. Okay? The leverage can massively expand your income potential. If it's done smartly, it may also increase your risk. That's why it's important that we're going to be buying at a good price to minimize that. Okay? The third step we can look at in shares is a thing called insurance. Jot this down. Insurance. You've heard of it before. Many Australians don't want to invest in shares because they think it is risky. Let's minimize the risk. If you could insure your shares, then you could sleep at night. So they go down, you don't have to worry because they've got insurance against them. Who thinks that would make share investing a little bit safer? Okay? Most people don't know how to do that. Now, if you ask GAO tomorrow, can you insure my shares? They're not going to do it for you. It will be done through a broker. Okay? So, and the terminology is not always called insurance, but it's the same concept. You pay a premium on the market and you get protection. Okay? Quite handy. I won't go into that too much now. Let's look at number 4. If you want to get a little bit more advanced in shares, is what's quite convenient, is what I call it the way down strategy. What that means in the share market, if you're not aware, you can make money on the way down in shares. So why most people are panicking and losing money, you could be making money when a share falls, which is very handy because shares tend to go up and they tend to go down. So if they're going down, you can profit. A lot of great fortunes have been made when a market's crashing. See, once you can learn something like that, it doesn't matter if the market goes up or down. See, I'm not attached. See, my shares right now, I'm not attached when they go up or down. I'm not like, I bought them, I hope they go up. If you're hoping, you're doing something wrong. I buy, accept my decision, goes up, down. I don't control that. No matter of thought, focus on the share is going to change anything. I'm unattached to that. If it goes up, I respond to that and change my strategy. Make a profit. If it goes down, I change my strategy so I can make a profit. Okay? That's what we're looking at. Now, 5 and 6. Let's get into 5 and 6. I'll just go through these quickly. Number 5 is what my brother-in-law does. My brother-in-law is called Simon. So just jot down Simon. We'll explain that in a moment. He didn't have a lot of money to start sharing investing. Has anyone heard from Simon? Heard Simon speak before? A couple of people. And Simon, used to work in the army, work hard, to make money, and then he got sick of that. like many people in the army, and he decided to start investing. He didn't know a lot about investing, so he had to go do some training and learn some things. And he came across a strategy that he was fairly excited about, and it was where he could, instead of buying shares, he was able to control other people's shares. In other words, he would pay what's called a rental. He'd rent other people's shares for a certain period of time, and he could profit quite substantially at times. And he was able, within 6 months, make more, sometimes more money, working, an hour a day with his strategy, sometimes half an hour a day, than he used to make, working 40, 50 hours a week. And then he was able to double and then triple his income at times within, 6 to 12 month period. And what he does is he makes money on the way up and on the way down without even owning any shares, because he simply rents other people's shares. Okay? And then let's look at, now I'll explain in a moment what he does, because what I like to do is do the exact opposite to what Simon does. Okay? Because what Simon does is exciting and can make good money. However, it's also what we call a high-level risk strategy. It has high returns, it has high risk. It's one of those where it is high return, high risk. Okay? Now that risk can be managed, but it takes a lot more education to do that. It's quite popular. Many seminars will teach you how to do that. However, what I prefer to do is minimize my risk. Anyone else in the room like to minimize their risk? Okay? And I don't like to sit in front of a computer an hour a day either. I'm too busy enjoying, life to do that. Simon doesn't mind it. It's better than working 40, 50 hours a week. He doesn't mind it. So what I like to do is let people like Simon take the risk, and so the strategy I like to do has a low level of risk. And what we're going to do is we're going to rent out some shares. Okay? So renting out shares, and I'll explain how that works. You can learn to make money while you sleep, but it's a good idea not to sleep while you're learning to make it. Okay? Otherwise, I can't guarantee it's going to work. So you're about to learn some strategies which has freed many Australians from working, some within a matter of weeks, a matter of months, certainly within a year or two. There's no reason a person in this room could not be replacing their income inside the next 24 months, would be my belief. Many within 12, many within 3 or 4 months. Is that worth staying awake for? Okay. Some people say, Jamie, I've got to go to a job tomorrow. These seminars run so damn late all the time. I'm sort of like thinking, well, if you learn this stuff, you won't have to go to a job tomorrow. Okay? Different mindset, different way of thinking. Okay? Job will become a choice. Here's what we've got to understand. Draw a line down the page. On this side, we're going to do a comparison very quickly. Traditional business. You want to invest in a traditional business versus a share renting business. In other words, it teach you how to rent out shares. And we're going to see what is the best strategy. Because there is risk involved in this, but as I said, less risk than what most of you are taking right now. If you were to buy a traditional business, what might a traditional business cost? Could you spend $100,000 on a restaurant, coffee shop, corner store? Let's say $100,000. You spend a lot more, actually. Let's say $100,000. And let's verse $100,000 in a share renting business. And let's see what sort of business you prefer to have. You'll see why I love these sort of businesses. Okay, so $100,000, if you're going to borrow for a business, is it difficult finance, yes or no? Very difficult. So difficult they're going to want security on your house. Does that increase the risk level of a traditional business? If those who are in business who ever thought about it, yes, the risk is high, extremely. In other words, the business fails, you lose your house. Does that happen to a lot of Australians? Yeah, see, the banks aren't stupid. They know 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and the 5 years after that, 80% of those that make it past the first 5 years will fail. That's why they want the house as security, because they know they're going to get the house. Okay? The average Australian doesn't know that because they get sick of working for their idiot boss, and they decide to become the idiot boss. Okay? Instead of getting a guaranteed paycheck, working 5 days a week, they now get to work 6 or 7 days a week. Okay? With no guaranteed paycheck. They work for nothing. But it will make a profit one day. Then we'll pay ourselves. And one day usually never comes. So they work, the lifestyle is not good. So 6 to 7 days a week, low income generally, many times don't even take a guaranteed salary. What else is great about a business? Stress. Yeah, there's usually a little bit of that. What about a thing called staff? In business, you often have to have staff. You better put that down. Okay. Now, having staff, it's a little bit like having staff in companies often say. Having staff is like, you know, having an adult daycare centre. Think about it, okay? But it's actually worse than an adult daycare centre because, you know, in an adult daycare centre, you'd actually get paid for looking after them. But in business, you have to pay them. It's even worse. So staff can be a major headache. Stress levels. Fixed location, you have to live near where the business is. It's another thing. So we're obviously not going to be selling you a business franchise tonight, are we? Okay. It doesn't look too good. But many people do that. Okay. What I'm suggesting is there's going to be risk to our alternatives, but let's compare it to our risk. You could put a job here, your career. You might have to pay 100 grand up front for your career, but if you stop working in your career, do you get paid? So there's not a lot of job security there. If you don't work, you don't get paid, so there's risk to that. You probably don't work 6 or 7 days a week. Maybe some of you do, but maybe only 5 days a week. Your lifestyle, you still have to live near where you work, which is a bit of a challenge. See, one of the reasons I moved to Noosa, I have a summer home in Noosa. I used to live in Sydney. And Sydney's a great place to live, but you know, you can buy mansions in Noosa for about 30% of the price than in Sydney. You know, a $5 million home in Sydney is not always that nice. Yeah, they're still expensive. But you could buy a house nicer in Noosa for $1 million. Okay? So if you don't have to live in a fixed location, you can live in a much nicer part of the world. Okay? Anyhow, let's look at a share renting business as a difference. What you'd probably find with $100,000 and you say, well, I don't have $100,000 to rent out some shares and buy some shares to do this with. Well, you could borrow that money. To borrow money for shares, is it very easy compared to any other form of finance? If you're not aware, the answer is yes. Easiest form of finance, I think, that exists on the planet. Okay? You could be bankrupt. You'll still be able to get the finance. In this, you'd need, though, in a share renting business, you're going to need at least 30% deposit, and you can borrow the rest. However, I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm suggesting you probably, if you're going to borrow to set up a business like this, that you put in 50% deposit and you borrow the 50. Okay, if you're going to do that way. Or you just use the 100 grand if you've got 100 grand as an example. But getting finance is easy. Will they want security against your house? Yes or no? No. Bonus. Less stress. The only security they want is the shares you're buying in the first place. Obviously, they have more value than a business. Can you liquidate your share renting business in 30 days or less? Yes or no? You can get rid of it and you cash it in. Get your money back in 30 days or less. Okay? Traditional business, try and sell it in 30 days or less. Not much chance. In 3 years or less, not much chance. Okay? For the money you put into it, you can lose a lot of money in those things. You can also make money, but it's much higher level risk. Liquidity is good. Lifestyle is great. Does it take 6, 7 days a week to manage this sort of thing? No, it takes about 5 minutes a month. Literally. You can narrow that down to about 30 seconds after a couple of months. All is a phone call. Do you have to live near where you work? No, you can live anywhere in the world. In other words, you could be laying on a Hawaiian beach, make a phone call back to your broker, and yet your month's work's done. You can stay holidaying for another month. I love this strategy so much. I love the snow ski. Went to Whistler some time ago. We have a place in Whistler, Canada, and I went to Whistler. And before I flew off to on the plane to fly over there, it was going to cost about $4,500 for a week holiday in Whistler, Canada. And I don't like to spend money. You know, learn of becoming wealthy, you tend to get good at managing money. You don't like to spend it. So I thought I'm going to create some new money for this. And so I just ring my broker and say, look, I need $4,500 to pay for the week's trip. Could you arrange and put that in my bank account tomorrow? Okay, not a problem. All I have to do is tell him to rent out X amount of shares. In that case, I told him just to rent out 3,000 shares. 3,000 shares, then every next day, $4,500 into my bank account. Used to pay for the holiday. Amazing. Okay? Amazing. Let me show you how that works. So in other words, you can operate it from anywhere in the world. Yes, there's risk to this, but I love the risk compared to everything else. Let's compare it to a car, shall we? We know what happens there. Let's compare it to anything else. The risk factor is quite good. Okay, I want to get you comfortable with that. Okay, So, turn the page. Draw a line down the middle of the page. On this side of the page, put Simon's name. I'm going to explain to you what Simon does in his strategy, because we're going to do the opposite of that. And what we're going to do is just put my name up here. We're going to rent some shares. And let's explain how we do that. To do what I do, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to buy some shares. You've probably figured that by now. You'll have to buy some shares. Many of you in the room already own some shares, or you might be able to use your parents' shares, or whatever. You're going to have at least 1,000 shares. At least 1,000 shares. Ideally, you're going to do this strategy with blue chip companies. Blue chip, if you're not aware of that, the big companies that make billions of dollars of profit are likely to stick around for more than 30 days. Okay? They're likely to stick around for many years. So then we've got to decide which shares, what price we're going to buy them at. That's why number one strategy is important. You're going to buy them at a low price. Okay? You can look in the paper and see how high it's been up to in the last 12 months, how low it's been down to. That will give you 30 seconds of research, will save you a lot of money. You buy them at a low price. We're going to buy XYZ share at $16. Is that fair enough? That's going to cost us how much? $16. It's going to cost us a total of $16,000. So that's all right, Jamie, I don't have $16,000. Go back a few pages to the 8 steps to get started. How can you come up with $16,000? One, you can borrow that money, okay, if you have to. You need a deposit and you can get what's called a margin loan. Margin loan is a form of finance for shares, okay? Just like a property loan is a loan for borrowing property, a margin loan should be called a share loan, shouldn't it? To keep it simple. So $16,000. What we can do with shares generally to make income is you get a dividend, is that right? So you can get a dividend. In this strategy, you still get dividends. It's a bonus. You can still, generally you buy shares to sell them at a profit or make capital growth. Good thing with this strategy, you can still make capital growth. Okay? But the main thing we're doing this for is cash flow. And the cash flow is what we're going to get from renting our shares. Okay? Who's going to pay us rent for our shares? I mean, who would want our shares anyhow? Well, Simon does. Okay? And not just Simon, but thousands of Simons. Okay? Hundreds of thousands of Simons. And not only Simons, but big managed funds. Okay? Big companies that need to buy shares. But they don't necessarily want to buy them. They're interested in renting them for different reasons. Let me explain to you why Simon would want to pay us rent. You don't need to know what Simon does, but just in case you want to help you understand it. Simon is willing to place a bet. Basically is what he's doing. He has a belief that it's now May, say, and he believes this share price at $16 may go up to $17, say. Jot those figures down. Make sure you get all these figures. You don't have to understand this the first go around. Okay? It goes up to $17 by the end of May. So that's what he thinks is going to happen to this share price. Therefore, he's willing to rent our shares because if he rents our shares and they go up in value, he's going to make a profit. How he makes that profit is he would have to pay, in this example, say 44 cents in rent. 44 cents he would have to pay across here to us. And we ran out 1,000 shares because that's the minimum you can do it with. You would get 1,000 times 44 cents. We would get paid into our bank account $440. Is everyone with me? I'll show you in a moment how to make a lot more than that. That's paid in our bank account. That's paid, monthly if you do it monthly. So it's like a monthly rental contract. He's paying us 44 cents. What he has in his advantage, if the share price goes up, the value of this rental goes up. Okay? It may go up and be now worth 88 cents. Now some people say, why would it go up? Jot down the answer. Who cares? Doesn't matter. All we need to know is we get paid money, okay? You happy with that? You get paid. What Simon does is his problem, okay? And Simon knows what he's doing as well. This is the one strategy. If you like to have a win-win strategy, one of the few strategies in the share market where you can win and someone else can win. Because usually the share market is win-lose. So it goes up. So Simon could make money easily. He's paid 44 cents for something he can now sell for 88 cents to someone else. You see that? He's made a profit. He's happy. Doesn't affect us. We've been paid our 44 cents up front. We've got that. What happens over there doesn't affect us. 3 things can happen. You need to be aware of this. 1, the share price for May stay around $16. So XYZ company stays about $16. What happens is you keep the $440, and guess what you do the very next month? You re-rent them. Just like if you have a property and you have a holiday tenant in there for a month, once their 4 weeks holiday is up, they leave and you put it up for rent again. Same thing with shares, same thing you're going to do. You're going to re-rent them, you make that money again, sometimes maybe more. That's one thing that can happen. The second thing that can happen, you must be aware of this. Number 2 is the share price could go up. Okay? And if the share price, let's say it went up to $17 or above before the end of May, before the end of this month. Okay? You've got to understand in this rental contract, Simon has a clause, and that clause states that if it goes above this predetermined price which you agreed to before the month is out, then he has the right to buy our shares off us. Can you believe that? He has the right to buy it off us. And that can happen. So beware. Let's see what would happen if that happened. He could buy our shares off us if it went above that price before May ran out. He would have to pay the predetermined price, which is $17 for our shares. We bought them at what price? So we've had them sold at 17. Is that a good thing, yes or no? Because you've just made $1 per share profit. So put down in your bank account, here's your little bank account, add another $1,000, thank you very much. Okay? But wait, there's more. You not only get your $1,000 from the selling the shares, you still get to keep your rental as well. So you add them both together and you get both in your bank account. Now the only thing you have to worry about, you're going to have to pay a little bit of stamp duty, okay, a little bit of tax on this. Yes, you will have to pay some tax on your profits. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, and I'm sure you can minimize that. People can take care of that. But you're going to make a profit. There's a third thing you must be aware of, because before you get excited about this and think this may be one strategy you could use to replace your income in the near future so you can go holidaying more or whatever you want to do, because in life many of us get excited. Is that true? We get excited about something and it sounds too good to be true, and then we get disappointed because it doesn't work out. Has that happened to anyone before? And then we get excited, but the next time we don't allow ourselves to get quite as excited, because in the back of our mind we're thinking, we know what happened last time we got excited and it didn't work out. Okay? And then it doesn't work out and we get disappointed again. And then we just start to get smart as humans, because we start to figure out, hang on a minute, I'm not going to get excited anymore because I hate getting disappointed. So we figure out the best way to overcome disappointment is we're just going to stay disappointed in life and not allow ourselves to get excited. That way at least we won't get too disappointed again. Okay? And that happens for many people. So what you've got to understand is the third thing that can happen. There's always a catch to any strategy. Okay? Let's see what the catch is. What if the share price goes down? And let's say it's getting close, we're 2 weeks left in May, and the share price drops to, say, $15.50 by the end of May. Okay, that can happen. You paid $16,000 for something, it's now dropped to $15,500. If you bought them at $16, this is a big blue chip company that's making billions of dollars a year. You bought them at 16, it's been up to 19, down to 16. Would you still sleep okay, yes or no? If you wanted to, you could insure them so it wouldn't affect you anyhow if you wanted to. But let's say you're not insuring them and you're not worrying about that. On paper, you've lost 50 cents a share. So deduct that off here, 50 cents a share. Put that figure in. You lost 50 cents. However, if you had been renting out your shares, as in this example, you knew how to do that, at the beginning of the month, you would have received 44 cents rental, which you could use that 44 cents to offset the 50 cents paper loss, which leaves you with a paper loss of what? of only 6 cents. Is that a good thing, yes or no? So no matter which way we look at it, you're better off by renting your shares. So I can make this claim, I can say this, that renting your shares adds no additional risk to owning shares. It actually minimizes your risk. The risk is if you're not doing it, you can be missing out on income, okay, every month. So let's go through that again very quickly. Number one thing can happen is nothing but you keep your rent. Number two, as it goes up, shares get sold and you make a profit. Number three is it can offset any drop. The shares go back up, say, next month, and you're in front again, okay? What if you did this every month? You've got 44 cents. Let's jot these figures down. You bought the share at $16, right? You received 44 cents, take that off. You got paid up front. How much did your share really cost you now? $15.56. You rent the share out again for, say, 50 cents next month. Keep the figures simple. How much does the share cost you now? $15, say. Do you notice how the cost of your share is getting cheaper and cheaper every month? Bet you hate that. Let's imagine after 3 months it can get cheaper and cheaper. You bought a blue chip company at a low price if you've done it right, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Is that minimizing your risk? Absolutely. Okay. This is also putting cash in your pocket instantly. Yes, it is. Now, no doubt some of you got some questions, so here's what I want you to do. Turn to the person next to you. You've got 60 seconds each to explain that to them, educate them, like an expert, how that works, and then I'll take some questions. Go for it, with some enthusiasm. All you've got to do is the concept. All we're doing, we own some shares, we rent them out, we get money, and we go on holidays and enjoy our life. That's all it is, okay? There's not much more to it. You don't have to find Simon, you don't need Simon's mobile number, so he'll see whether he'll rent your shares for you as well, okay? And another question, you don't have to worry, is there going to be enough people out there, Jamie? You know, you keep telling people about this, you know, is that going to spoil it for the rest of us, you know? Now, is there enough people like Simon to pay his rent every month or every week, you know? And I say to people, don't worry about that. I've already thought of that and I've taken care of that problem for you. See, what we did, I hired Simon, we started the business, and we got Simon out there teaching people how to do what he does. So that way we've always got plenty of people new recruits being taught how to pay us rental money, okay? So you don't have to worry, we balance it up, okay? And keep more and more, and Simon doesn't mind, you know, because he's in his seminars, he's, you know, saying, you know, we've got people teaching over here, so more people, so it's a win-win for either side, so it doesn't matter. I just personally think being this side is much better. You hear from Simon, he's going to tell you a different view. Okay. But it's a different strategy for everyone. But I do think this is much smarter to get started with. You can take your profits from here and then consider doing what Simon does as well if you want to do both. I just stick this side of the fence. Okay, I'll take a couple of questions and I'll go and show you how you can make a little bit more than $440 a month out of it, how you can jump that up to, say, $4,500 a month. Obviously, you can go much higher than that. There's plenty of money in the market. I only do this in the Australian market. You can do it overseas. But once you start making more than $1 million a month from it, then you probably earn the right to go to the American market and do it there as well. Okay, so it should keep you busy here for a while. Anyone like to, any questions? Okay, we'll start here.
How does Simon make his money? Why is he renting it off?
Why is he renting off? It's a good question. The only reason he's renting off is because he can enter into a rental contract. You know, the rental was a word that I've created to explain this in a simple format. He's paying 44 cents for something. The only reason he would do that is he believes the share price is going to go up. If the share price goes up, this goes up in value. He can then resell this rental contract to someone else like him. They will pay him whatever it's worth. The market will set that, usually supply and demand. And he'll be able to sell that at a profit. So he gets in, he might sell that the day later or a week later. In and out. He's using a small amount of money. It's costing $440. He's now sold it for $880. 88 cents, $880. He's made $440 maybe in a week. And it's taken him 2 phone calls. That's why he got excited about his strategy. He was able to stop working because he made enough of that. Okay? However, it takes a lot more training to do that side of the fence. Here, it takes a lot less training, a lot more realistic, okay, to be able to do this. Okay? I can say anyone in this room could learn how to do this in a matter of, be doing this in a matter of a month, okay? In a matter of, some of the videos you got there, you watch that, you know exactly how to do that, and you'll be doing it tomorrow if you watched it enough.
Where's the market? What sort of brokerage do you pay for picking these up?
Yeah, brokerage is a common question. You're not paying. One bonus of doing this is you're looking at about a $75 fee. Generally, it's going to vary depending on who you use. Every rental contract. If your shares are sold, you'll pay brokerage on that. Depends on who you're using. The different brokers, usually less than 1% depending on your volume. So you will pay brokerage, and you'll pay income tax on the rental. So ideally, you could set it up through a company. If you're doing a lot of this in the beginning, I wouldn't worry too much. Okay. Does that make sense? Here's a challenge. You want to jot this down. 92.5% of brokers are not accredited to do this. So you might as well beware. You just rush out there tomorrow. I think I'm going to go and speak to my broker about this. How come he hasn't told me? He's going to go, what? Most of them have no idea what you're talking about. Because most brokers have no idea how to do this. 92.5% are not accredited. Out of the 7.5% that are, even some of them don't fully understand it. Okay, so that is a challenge. You need to be able to educate brokers.
That's my question. I'm a pygmy when it comes to stocks and shares. I'm sure there's a lot of other people here. Where can you find a good mentor that can teach you some of these skills?
Okay. Yeah, I can't think of anyone. It's just Mr. Howard might be able to run seminars, the government teacher. No, what you can do is, one, you've got to get contacts as well will help. I will tell you now, obviously we have academy brokers that are accredited to do this, but they only work with people that are part of the academy. Okay, you can be a member of the academy and they'll do it for you. Outside that, or we can train you, etc., how to educate other brokers how to do it for you. Does that make sense? You shouldn't have to train brokers how to do it, but unfortunately it's a bit like that, okay? But the key is getting yourself educated, okay? Some of you will be able to watch a video, etc., and take that away, and that'll show you how to do it in more detail.
Yeah, join the academy. How much does that cost?
About $25,000. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking, okay? His heart's like, okay. Okay, I'll tell you that at the end. I want to go through more strategies first, if you want to find out about that, okay? It's a question I'm assuming is, how many times on average would your shares be sold in this example? On average is about, it's going to vary on your portfolio. Statistically across the board, about, 8 to 9 times out of 10 won't be sold. Okay? So 1 or 2 times out of 10 your shares will be sold. Now, I sometimes do a little bit more aggressive. I don't mind my shares being sold. Like last month, on some of the shares I was doing this with, I rented them out. I made about, I think it was about 70 to 80 cents rental. Okay, so every 1,000 shares of those, that's $700 to $800 in cash. They were sold. The share price went up and they were sold. They were sold at 80 cents above what I paid for them. So I made another 80 cents plus the around 80 cents I made. That was $1.60 for that month. Okay, let me show you a little bit more. Okay, and I'll take a couple more questions. What we're going to look at is how you can speed up, the income. The highest, let me give you a best case example. The highest rental I've been able to get is around $1.50. You don't get that every month, but that was sort of the highest. And last year, there was many months on some shares you could consistently do that on. $1.50 rental. Would you like to know how to get a brand new $100,000 motor vehicle for virtually free? Anyone interested in knowing how to do that? Okay, well, we'll cover it tomorrow night. Look at it. Let's say you have a car. Who has a car? Raise your hand if you got a car. Okay, here's what you're going to do. Let's say you sell your car. So you sell your car, and you need to come up with, say, 16 grand. Hopefully, if your car's worth anything, you'll get 16 grand for it. If it's not, you're going to have to save some money or get it from elsewhere to come up with 16 grand. You take that $16,000 and you buy 1,000 shares. Okay? And let's say you want your dream car is, say, a BMW 328 Emerald Blue convertible, for instance. Okay? $100,000 motor vehicle. That will cost you, so you can pay cash for that, but that's an asset that drops in value, so you might want to tie up your cash, or you could finance it. A BMW like that will cost you about $1,100 a month, $1,200 a month, say on finance. Whatever your car is going to be, okay? And that means you're going to need to come up with, say, $1,100 a month. If you bought 1,000 shares, in this example, some months you can get rentals as high as $1.50. That means $1.50 by 1,000 shares gives you how much for that month? $1,500. You're not going to get that every month. You're not going to rent them out every single month because some months you're not going to. You could technically, but 6 to 9 months a year is more realistic. You could take that and use that to pay off the car. If you did that long enough to pay off your car eventually becomes virtually free. Does that make sense? If it works with a car, what about a boat? Maybe. So the concept of saying, let's say, look at the best rentals here. So when I talk about, an example of Whistler, to generate $4,500, and that example was as little as 3,000 shares. 3,000 shares at $1.50 rental generates $4,500. Does that make sense? Now that's a best case example, okay? However, even if you halve those returns, you're still looking where you can go 1,000 to 3,000 shares. Those shares will only cost around $60,000. You do the numbers on that. $60,000 for those sort of returns, okay? But let's say you had to have $100,000 worth of shares to generate that sort of return most months of the year. Who would consider being able, who could replace their income on $4,500? Who could go close at least? Okay. Some of you could keep on working, etc. But $4,500 a month, the question is, how many shares do you need to do that? That's going to vary depending on your skill level, okay, depending on what shares you do it on. And you'll be able to generate, it's a consistent form of income. The banks will let you use it, okay, as income to be able to borrow more money. So some people have assets but no income. The banks won't let them borrow money. You get income, the banks will let you borrow money, so you can use more of your assets as well, okay? So if you look at that as $4,500 a month, you can do a lot with that, okay? A $4,500 a month will pay for $1 million home, okay, monthly repayments. If you wanted a new home or something, you can start to use money more effectively. Repeat after me. Something to think about. Okay, it depends how you do it. I stick usually to 1 or 2 shares, generally 1, okay? I'm not licensed to advise you in the share market, so I'm not going to mention any shares or things like that. One, I don't give advice. We have in our academy, we have licensed share speakers that, because they're licensed brokers, they're allowed to actually tell you particular shares that this is being done on right now. The top 5 shares, for instance, that'd be very handy, save you a lot of time. So, what was your question again? No, you stick to 1. You can stick to 1 or 2, so no, you don't have to be replacing a lot. Let me show you what I also do with this. Okay, I won't go into detail on this, but if you think this is good, I use another strategy around this, which is so good. I usually don't like to share it in a seminar like this until we get to know each other a little bit better, because you won't probably believe it's possible. You think, I'm having you on. But let me show you another thing that you can do that works hand in hand with this. See, what you've got to do is sometimes a share that you want to do this on might be around $19. That means you may have to wait a month or 2 before it drops down to a price you want to buy it at. Could that happen? So what I like to do is I like to become an insurance company. You know why I want to be an insurance company? I want to be like HIH. But, you know what an insurance company can do? You can pay them money and they get your money and all they have to do is make a promise. And often they never have to deliver on that promise. In other words, only a fraction of people that pay insurance are ever going to make a claim. Is that true? Okay, that's the idea of insurance. If everyone made a claim, no, there wouldn't be enough money there. So you pay a premium for a promise that someone will deliver something, if need be. So what I do in the share market is the same thing. So I make a promise. My promise is that I'm interested in buying XYZ share, so at a particular price that I'm happy with. So I make a promise to the market and say, when the share is at this, I'm willing to buy a share at $16, say. It's not there yet, but I'm willing to buy it at a share. I'm willing to buy, say, 10,000 of them at that price. Did you know, simply by making that promise to the market via my broker, You know, I did that on just, last week on, a lot more than 10,000 shares. We used the example of just 10,000 shares. For making that promise, I was paid $1.34 per share up front into my bank account simply for making a promise. Do the calculations on just 10,000 shares. How much does that come to? $13,400. Okay? That takes about 30 seconds sitting in my hot tub. Is investing a good hobby, do you think? Yes or no? Can you see why I get excited about this hobby? That is fun. It's like, is this legal? I say to my broker sometimes, it just seems, is it legal? It's definitely legal, by the way. But why do I get paid that money? Now, I make a promise that I have to, what may happen is I may have to buy that share at that price. But I've already decided I'm happy to buy at that price anyhow. I'm waiting to buy them. Okay? But what happens many months, only if the share price goes to a certain price will I have to buy it. Many months, I never have to buy it. So I can get this insurance monthly on shares and never, ever actually buy the share. That means I don't have to outlay enough to buy 10,000 shares. Only a small percentage of that do I have to actually provide as security. That means the rest of your money could be sitting in your line of credit, paying no interest on, just there ready, because you must have the ability to be able to buy those 10,000 shares in that example. You can't just say, yeah, I'll take the insurance money, okay, you can't deliver. That's called HIH, okay? Guess what happens if I do eventually buy the shares? I'm happy to buy them at that price, so now I buy them. I've been paid up front, and guess what I do as soon as I buy it? I rent them out. I get paid, maybe not $1.34, but 70, 80 cents, $1 per share. And 10,000 shares, that's another, say, 10 grand in the bank account again. I've only owned them for like an hour, been paid $13,400 up front, another 10 grand, and guess what I do at the end of the month? The next month, I rent them again. Unless my shares go up, I might be sold. If I get sold, I keep the rental plus make a profit. I don't mind getting sold. You know why? Because I need to go and buy more shares. That means I can make a promise to the market. I'm willing to buy more shares at this price, and guess what they will pay me? Insurance money. Why? Because there's people, number 3, that are willing to pay insurance money to guarantee someone will buy their share. Does that make sense? Okay? They're happy. Do you pay insurance money, yes or no? You pay it. You win because you get a promise delivered, if need be, and the insurance company wins. Same situation. I love it. Okay, it works hand in hand with this. Okay, so I've got to cover one more strategy on property. Okay, I know some of you are saying, I still like this stuff, but property. I do both. This is instant, you can do straight away, but you also want longer term strategies as well. Okay, I like to buy property virtually no money down because I like to put my cash, guess where? Yeah, I don't like to type cash in property. So I figured out how to buy property virtually no money down. Okay. And for instance, last month I bought over 4 properties actually in Brisbane, total of in excess of $1.2 million worth of property. My only cash outlay on those 4 properties is for 4 properties, $1.2 million worth of property, no more than $2,400 to control $1.2 million worth of property, which I bought at around about $80,000 below what the banks value it at. Okay. Which means that's all instant profit straight away. And I don't have to pay for those properties for over a year. It's very likely in a year those properties are worth not 1.2, but maybe 1.3 to 1.4. My outlay is virtually nothing. Okay? And in the meantime, my money's tied up making these sort of returns. You can see how investing is not a bad hobby. Okay? Especially when you don't need the money. It's fun. You can do a lot of things with it. So let's look at property very quickly. What you want to look at is property, and you get property to double every 7 to 10 years. It's quite handy. A lot of statistics say that on average across the board residential property has done that in the last 146 years. Not all property though. Some people in the room would have property that's doubled in 5 years. Some people have property that's taken 20 years to double. Depends. What we want to look at, Bill and Mary for instance, they're earning $50,000 a year, say. They want to replace their income by buying 2 investment properties. Okay, this will only take a couple of minutes to go through. We'll look at how they can buy 2 investment properties for them to retire. $50,000 a year is about $35,000 after tax, say as an example. Everyone with me? So what we're going to look at is buying 2 properties. Who's committed to buying 2 properties in the next decade? Who'd be willing to consider doing that? If you get help with finance, contact, especially if you could buy them virtually no money down, I'm sure you'd be interested in doing that. So year 1, we're going to buy a property. We're going to select a property. Properties I tend to buy around 300,000. Okay, less, more, but let's say 300,000. Works well for this strategy. And the second year we don't buy any property. The third year we buy a second property. And that's all we're going to do because we're basically lazy. Okay, that's all we want to do. So you don't have to buy 100 properties to make this work. 10 years' time. It's going to take 10 years. Always make your plans more conservative. Don't count on 7. Take 10. Could take longer. So you can even make it more conservative if you want. Let's say 10 years. These properties are going to be worth $600,000 10 years after you buy them. Is that fair enough? Especially if you're buying with a good criteria, good checklist. Make sure you buy quality property. I don't buy properties outside of capital cities generally. Does that give you a clue? Why? Because in capital cities, there's a lot of certainty that they're going to continue to grow. Okay? Can you make good money outside of that? Yes, I have some property outside capital cities that I've made phenomenal returns on. Okay? But most of the portfolio like to stay to capital cities. But you ought to work out your own criteria. This strategy is not going to work, okay, in a small country town. Because it's not going to double in 10 years. It's not going to double in 100 years. It's going to go the other way, okay? Imagine Broken Hill. Property doesn't double every 10 years in Broken Hill. You can buy properties for like $1,300. People just leave them. They leave town, they buy them fully furnished for $1,300. Okay? So don't try it in Broken Hill and say, Jamie, that strategy doesn't work. So that gives us $300,000 in extra money we've made out of thin air over 10 years. Does everyone see that? You've bought this property probably on a 10% deposit unless you've learned how to buy it virtually no money down. And you borrowed the difference. It's now worth $600,000. You've got $300,000 in there from capital growth. Bill and Mary need $35,000 a year. They're probably thinking, well, I don't borrow for property. That means if I borrow for property, I have to work harder and longer to pay off that debt. And they're working hard thinking, I've got to pay off all this debt so then we can retire off the rent. Okay? And if they retire off the rent, they have to share the rent with the government. Is that true? Okay, so they pay tax on that. So they want to overcome that. So let's see if we can be smarter. If they buy and sell property to make a profit, then they have to pay capital gains tax generally. Is that right? So it slows it down, takes up more time. We're going to buy a good property now, and we're going to keep it ideally forever in this strategy. It's worth $600,000, gives us $300,000 here. They need cash though. They need $35,000 a year to replace their income. Where can they get that from? We learned tonight a thing called line of what? And a line of credit allowed us to draw what out of property? Equity, or in other words, cash. By just setting up a bank account, they'll draw this down. And they need $35,000 a year. Can they draw out $35,000? They can in the first year. Is there any law against where they spend that money? The banks don't care. They can spend it to pay Woolworths for groceries, go to the Greek islands for a holiday, etc. Year 2, they can do the same thing. They can spend that money. Year 3, take another $35,000. Are they spending money they've worked hard for, or are they spending thin air that's been made while they're sleeping? They're actually spending thin air. If you're spending thin air, could you enjoy it more, do you think? Because you have to work hard for the stuff. It's like you don't enjoy spending because it makes you feel guilty. Is that right? And you don't want to enjoy the lifestyle. We don't want to take any more money out of that property, even though they could. So year 4, so they wait at 10 years till they're double, then they started to draw this down. So this is their 11th year, etc. Does that make sense? Year 4, 5, and 6, after they've doubled, they could take, say, $35,000 out of this property because it's just sitting there. Why not use it? Because if they don't use it, guess what's going to happen? They die. Someone else gets it. They lose it anyhow. So they might as well use this money they've made. $35,000 here, $35,000 here. Okay, 6 years now. They don't want to take any more money out of there. They want to keep it conservative. 6 years after this property is worth $600,000, do you think this might have went up in value by now? It's in capital city, good growth area. What might it be worth? Could it be worth $1 million? Always be conservative. Let's say 900,000. If it's doubled in 10 years to that, 6 years later, could be worth 900,000. Let's use that as an example. That gives them another $300,000 sitting there. Do you want to see that? They haven't finished using this 300,000, and they've got another 300,000 there. And does this property keep going up in value? Now, if they're not careful, if they don't start spending more money, they're going to get into a vicious cycle, which you must be very careful about. The vicious cycle is they're going to actually be making more money than they can possibly spend. It's just going to ruin their retirement. They have no time to go on holiday 1 week out of 4. You know, it's obviously, it's not going to work for them. Now, in a real world, there's going to be some things you have to overcome, but this gets done, so they've already been overcome. And we're going to look at that. The question to ask, though, $35,000 they're drawing out of here. Do they have to pay income tax on that? Because it's not income. They're spending thin air. There's no thin air tax yet, is there? That's why we don't let politicians come to our seminars. Because that's aha. Mr. Costello said, we need more revenue, we'll just tax the thin air, okay? But they're not allowed, okay? So, does that make sense? So that money is tax-free. Is that legal tax-free money? Yes or no? Yeah. The ATO can look at that, and you can do that, and they'll let you do that. Why? Because if you don't invest and buy properties to house Australians, then the government has to anyhow. So there's a tax incentive there to make that available. The idea of this strategy is never to sell the properties. Everyone okay on that? That's the idea of it. Yeah, that's what you don't want to have to do it because they'd sell it because people want peace of mind to wipe off the debt. What you understand is that rather than pay off the property, you could take that money and buy another property. Then that property is making you more money. You see, I've got one property that is going to double within 2 years. It's $1 million property. I was hoping it would double in 5 years and it'd double in 2. Do you think I'm pretty excited about that? That's at $1 million property doubling in 2 years. That's $1 million in 24 months. People say property doesn't go up in value. Hello, okay? They don't all do that, but in a capital city, look how many properties have doubled in 15 years in capital cities in Australia. Virtually all of them, unless the ones that got burnt down or something and insured by HIH, and it's like otherwise they're all fine. Okay, any other questions? We could draw that money out and run it through the little cash machine we've created over here, run it through and generate a little bit more cash. Now we're making money. Now, what level of risk do we now have on this? That's profit. We're taking money made out of thin air and put it into here. Our risk factor is now virtually zero no matter what happened with this. We make more money on that money. Now we're making money on money. Then if we could take that money and could we take it back over here and put a deposit down on another property so we make more money? We could do that. Or then you could get smarter, because that's how you become wealthy, and say, I'm not going to take and put it over here because I know how to buy property, no money down. I don't need to put it over here. I can still make that money over here without using any of my cash, virtually, and I can keep the money over here. So now you have both little cash machines working for you. Okay? And then, wait, there's still more. Because here's the reality in life. When you don't need money, guess what tends to show up? More of it, okay? Which is good, okay? Don't laugh about it, it's good. Trust me, okay? But here's why it shows up. Because you're still going to work, aren't you? Because you don't need to work for money. You're probably going to choose a career or work that you love or believe in or choose to and be more passionate about it. You're going to put your heart and soul into it. You're going to be more fulfilled. When you put your heart and soul into something, you're going to be more successful in your career. Because you're more successful, guess what? You'll be paid more money as well, especially because you don't need it. So then you have excess cash here from whatever you do. So now you have threefold, and it all starts to spiral together, okay? That is the big picture. It all starts with some action, okay, and the right contacts, the right support, the right commitment to educate yourself, okay? That's why we created 21st Century Academy. I'll tell you a little bit about it very quickly, then we'll have a drink. It's not for everyone, but I'll tell you why it's been put together is obviously to make it as simple as possible for the average Australian to have all this put together. I would love someone to have done it for me, okay, to put it all together. Jot this down. This is how the academy works. 21st Century Academy. Tonight is where you start it, 3.5-hour seminar. Your next step would be two ways. Generally, it would be to do a 3-day seminar. So instead of 3.5 hours, where we've got to cram a lot of things in, we have a little bit more time to expand on these strategies in the detail necessary. For instance, in the 3-day seminar, which you can do live, you can attend a live event which is held throughout the country, regular times throughout the year, or you can get it on video, whatever you prefer. During this seminar, 60% of it is designed to teach you the best financial strategies that exist in this country. They're directly applicable. Many things we talked about tonight and some other stuff, okay? For instance, in that seminar, you would know you'd be showing the top 5 shares to do this on. We get the paper out, go through it with you, and show you, okay, how you determine what rentals you get, because you select your rental, how much rental you can make on existing shares you have right now, how to do that. Then we bring our licensed share speakers and our brokers on, and they're the people you'd be working with if you wanted to have it done for you. And they would put in all the other details for you. You'd know exactly at the end of 3 days how to do that. Does that make sense? It's not that difficult. Just need a little bit more time to go through it. People make money, some people the very next day, okay? Significant cash. Other people are going to take a few weeks to get their accounts organised. Some people a few months to get access to money to set it up. Does that make sense? Before you can get into that. Or you can watch it on video, so you'll be able to take a video home and watch it and do it virtually straight away. So you can do it 2 ways. 40% on it is designed to teach you the mindset and the best psychology as well, because if you don't work on that, you want more than money. Is that true? The money is great, take care of that, but you want a life. We make sure you create that as well. For fulfillment is much more. Money, I find, is easily solved after a while. Being fulfilled and having your life on purpose takes a little bit more. So that's important to have that covered as well. After the 3-day seminar, that's enough to take care of it, but to make it easier for you, you do get valuable contacts. Brokers, etc. can do this for you, or will teach you how to educate other brokers out there, access to financial contacts, assets, protection, structure, and all those things that are handy to utilise. The contacts alone, I think, are worth your tuition, okay? The amount of money it can save you and having access to the right people. Then you also have access to 12 months worth of support. You can get access to that as well, where you can come back to regular review seminars every 90 days to go over things and things like that. That produces a result. Here's my belief. Jot this down. If you're part of the academy, you go through this process, whether you watch it on video or do it live, within 12 months, this is my belief, is that anyone that does this should be able to generate a $25,000 profit within 12 months minimum, okay? That's what the expectation that I would have. You apply these strategies even from a standing start, $25,000 within 12 months improvement, which is pretty good. Now, obviously, many people have beaten that. Some of you would be in a position you'd make that in a month with some of these strategies, okay? I'm sure you'll forgive me, okay? So but it's not just the money as well, but that's the return on your investment. A few things though you need to know. The academy, to make this work, sounds great. It is, but I can't make you successful. You know what I'm saying? You have to do it. No one's going to do it for you. We're going to help you. We're going to assist you. You need to be committed to say, yes, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to do what it takes. Play the game the way it's necessary. You need to be honest with yourself. Be coachable. Like tonight, you've been open to entertaining new ideas. That's all you have to do is be open-minded. 4, if you get the results and you're happy with the academy, we'll give you some free tickets which you can give to family and friends or other people that would like to come to a night like this. Many of you in the room, majority in the room here tonight, because some family and friends have been to one of our seminars before. Is that true? And they've dragged you along or said, you've got to go to this, okay? And then the concept of giving to charity. My agenda is to create a massive change in this country. We help enough people become wealthy on purpose. We can do a lot for the country, okay? So you can put back into the country. Let me ask you a simple question. If you could learn all these things at your own pace, meet some amazing people, know in absolute detail how to put this into action and get instant cash flow, get the results back you want, and I said to you it was free, who would consider finding the time to be a part of it? Okay? Obviously most people. I have some good news for you and I have some bad news. Okay? And guess what the bad news is? It's not free. Okay? It will take an investment, okay, and I'll go through that in a moment, and some of you it'll be a stretch. If it's a stretch for you, guess what? Good. Do you think I haven't been stretched to get where I want to go? Most of us need to raise our standards. Okay? But it doesn't matter even if you don't have a cent in your pocket, you'll still be able to participate in this as long as you meet those conditions. Just hand out a form team very quickly so you know when you can get started, what your investment is, and then I'll hang around the back to answer any questions. And plus some of you will get to take away a free trial as well. So yeah, so you can start watching it tonight. Okay? I'm sure your spouse will be happy with that. What are you watching? Does everyone have a yellow form? Don't keep them all to yourself. Share them. Okay, pass them out. Let me go through this quickly so you understand. So you should have a yellow form that looks like this. First of all, you'll have two options. Option one, I'll go through this now. Option one will be what we call a home study package. Okay, I'll jot that down. You'll be able to, some of you will be able to, or actually everyone will be able to apply for the free trial. Does that make sense? There's not enough for everyone tonight, but everyone will be able to apply for that free trial. The ones that you'd miss out tonight, they'll have it sent out to you in the next couple of days. Is that fair enough? So at least everyone will be able to if you want to take the free trial. So home study package. Jot this down. Normally to do the home study package, and I'll tell you what that includes, is investment to do that is $1,995. Jot that down. Okay. What does that include? One, I'll just show you to make it easier. You get, instead of doing the seminar live, you get to do it on video. Okay, so you get over 30 hours of it on video. Give you plenty to do. On 2 video packages. To make it handier for each video is labelled. So let's say if some of you will get some of these to go home tonight, you can pull out the one that says how to rent out shares. Play it straight in, show you how to do it in absolute detail, etc. And then watch the brokers as they go through it again, the people that you'll be working with. Let's say you want to know how to buy property virtually no money down. You pull out that section, put it straight in. It's there for you. Let's say you want to know how to increase your income. Okay, negotiate to get a pay rise next week. You pull out that section, etc. So you get the videos. You also get it on audio because some of you listen to things in cars, is that right? So you watch it, get it on audio as well. You get a workbook, 1,000-page manual, all these strategies in detail, just in case you're a detailed person, you like to read a lot. Okay, or it's there as a handy reference. So that's all there. And a few other things you'll get as well. Now, that's the home study package. Jot this down. Let me ask you a simple question. Raise your hand if you're a good decision maker. Raise your hand, good decision maker. Okay. I often jokingly ask this question in my seminars, who's a good decision maker? And some people are like, if you're a good decision maker and you take advantage of the home study package tonight, or at least the free trial, you'll save $500. Jot that down. That means your home study package, after your free trial, if you want to keep it, is $14.95. Or what you can do is you can pay it monthly. So let's say you take a free trial, you get to watch it for 14 days. You don't get the whole lot, you just get part of it. You know, the videos on renting shares, property no money down, enough to keep you happy. You'd start watching that. And the 14 days, if you're happy, we'll send the rest out to you. Okay? And you can simply pay a $149 deposit, end of the 14 days, and a further $149 over another 12 months. Okay? If you want it financed. So it'll be financed for you. That make sense? Monthly, yeah. If you want to do it monthly. In other words, you could be making the money from the strategies and use that to pay for your tuition, if you want to do that. The other thing also I mentioned with the home study package, just to make it easier, yes, you do get access to all the contacts as well with that package. Okay? So physically, you could actually be watching and understand all the strategies, get access to the contacts, would send that out to you after your 14 days is up, and then you'll be able to ring the brokers, set up your accounts, different things you want to do. Okay? Option 2. Jot this down. You also have option 2, because some of you would want to do a live seminar as well. Option 2 is you can upgrade to a live seminar plus 12 months worth of support. You can jot that down. to upgrade to do the 3-day seminar plus 12 months worth of support, the upgrade is, jot this down, is $19.95. And I'll explain to you what that covers. Okay, so you'd add another $19.95, you want to upgrade and do that as well, as have it on video and tape and things like that. Or $199 deposit, plus 12. Spouse is only $14.95. Jot that down. $14.95. Come to a live seminar and the 12 months worth of support as well. And any teenagers in the room? Raise your hand, any teenagers in the room? Yeah, a few people. Teenagers are free. Okay. Any teenagers now? Okay. Yeah, 49-year-old teenagers. And the way that works is with every full-paying adult that does the academy, okay, you can bring your teenage son, daughter, next door neighbour, or teenager can come for free. Does that make sense? Okay. Things to remember. Here's what I say to people. I know if you do this, we've been doing this for a while now, you're not guinea pigs, it's been working. There's hundreds of people's success stories you can read about and things like that. The key is I know if you do it what you'll get out of it, but you don't. So fair enough, you haven't experienced it yet. So what I often say to people is do it and make your decision at the 3-day. In other words, you can do the live seminar and at the last day, on the lunch break of the last day, if you're not convinced you can make a $25,000 return on your money that you invested to be there, then it is free. Okay, it's 100% money back written guarantee. So make it easier for you. So it takes any risk away on your side. We take on all the risk, and you get to see for yourself, and you can go from there. So jot that down, free. If you're not happy, 100% money back guarantee if you do the 3-day seminar. One other bonus that you get, now you can just start on the free trial, start with that, upgrade to this later, or you can do the whole lot, arrange the whole lot straight away. If you arrange the whole lot straight away and tonight, what you'll do is get an extra bonus, and if you pay in full for the whole lot, okay, and do everything you can possibly do, that would be $19.95 plus the $14.95. If you did the whole lot, it would be what, $34.95, or you could do it monthly. But if you paid in full tonight for the whole lot, you'd also get an additional video and tape set as well. What you'll need to do, some of you have packages in front of you. What they will need, if you want to take away a free trial, all they ask is that you fill out your yellow form and you provide your name and details, obviously, and a credit card ideally as security. That way they know where you are and they can track you down. Okay? In other words, if just as security, nothing will be processed unless you decide not to cancel. And after 14 days, if you want to continue, they'll send you the home study package and they'll just take a deposit off your credit card at that point. Otherwise, someone will just pick it back up off you. And they'll give you one of these blue cards. That way, when you leave with the package, you just hand the blue card in to the person at the door. They know you've filled out your paperwork. Okay? So on your paperwork, you've got option 1 and option 2. You just tick which one you want to take advantage of. To make it easy at registration at the back is please fill out your form, first, okay, and they'll get through your form and give you the stuff. All I'll say in wrapping up tonight, it's been great to talk to you. All I'm going to suggest to do this, we will pay our price for our education. Now, I don't need you to be at the academy, etc. If you want to be there, we'll support you. Our time is valuable. My time is. I still put a lot of time into this. I'm happy to do that if you're committed to making it work. Does it make sense? And the benefit you'll get, you've got to understand, one of my mentors said, Jamie, you'll pay a price either way. If you don't learn this stuff, it's going to cost you a lot of money in ignorance. And I often think about, what does it cost the average Australian not to know how to just do this strategy? Every single month, how much cash are they missing out on? What does it cost not to know how to get into property versus no money down? What does it cost not to know how to negotiate your salary to get more? What's it cost ultimately, not financially, but just personally in our life? We only get one shot at life. Does that make sense? I know myself, I made a decision to make it the best. And I didn't have any money when I was starting. I was sitting there, 5 years ago, broke. The only way I got access to this information to get started was I had to borrow my sister's credit card. Okay? I stretched, but she gets a good return on that now. Okay? But I had to stretch, I had fear and doubt, but I did it. And I think that's why I get to live my dreams today. So if it's a stretch for you, go for it. We take all the risk. If we don't perform, don't get the strategy you want, had a great time, met some great people, and it's been free. Does that make sense? Been great talking to you tonight. I'll hang down the back, and there is some drinks, and you have a beer and have some questions. And just fill out your paperwork before you go to the back, otherwise they'll be here all night. Give yourselves a big hand.